to another Saturday, same old Mack and Black at the same old time.
Yep.
That's right. Representing right now out here in H-Town, it's me, El Oso Negro, and representing the Chicago as usual, Mack on the other side of the glass phone. What's going on, bro?
What's up, Nick?
Just out here, you know how it is, breaking necks, cashing checks, bro.
Yeah, collecting checks with the breaking of the necks, right?
Man, you know how it is.
Yeah,
like,
man.
Hey, man, don't you owe me money? I ain't got man.
Crack.
Exactly. And then pay the rent.
Yep. Yeah, it's getting to be that time once those W-2s start circulating in the next couple of months, and there's gonna be money on the way, so we're gonna have to start cracking some more necks later on.
Exactly. All right, guys. Well, let's see. We got a lot. Well, you know what? I keep saying we got a lot on the plate, but we got some NBA action we're gonna go over. We got some NFL. We got a recap. I'm just glad my team's on a flipping bye week because I'm tired of all the boo-hoo crying. We'll get into that. Bears play the Lions plus week. What is this? 13 now?
Yeah.
Week 13 or something, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Week 13. So the football season's damn near over with. We, obviously we saw. Baltimore took on the Steelers on Wednesday, was it?
Yeah, was it Wednesday afternoon? Like, oh my God.
And here's the sad part about that, dude. Not only did that game play on Wednesday, but then RG3, who filled in for Lamar Jackson, flipped and got hurt.
Yeah.
Like, go figure. Here's a guy coming out of college, Heisman Trophy winner. Apparently Mike Shanahan didn't really want RG3, but Daniel Snyder did, so he drafted him. You want to talk about a kid that had all the potential in the world, and one terrible knee injury pretty much made him a backup? RG3 is that guy. It sucks to see him go down, but he's out, I think, with a hamstring injury, so they put him on IR. That's usually minimum 3 weeks, but at this point, you might as well just say it's the season.
Yeah. And Chase McSorley, he had that one pass to Hollywood Brown that he ended up breaking off with, but I'm not sure Chase McSorley is the guy that they were hoping, the Baltimore Ravens were hoping was going to drive their playoff chances. Because right now, with the Steelers, we'll talk about them later. You have to start talking about perfect season with them, but also like the Ravens have no shot at the East anymore. So you've got to, or I'm sorry, AFC North. Excuse me. Yeah. So at this point, you've got to figure out some maneuvers for the rest of the season to jump in there.
Exactly. Christian in the chat says, guys, let's talk. Baseball winter meetings in NBA season starting. So hell, let's do it because I actually want to start off with the NBA because we had a huge trade that happened just the other day.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, dude, when I saw the news, I wasn't really shocked about this. Hold on, I'm trying to adjust my camera.
No, you good.
My bad, dude. I'm like very off center right now. I'm gonna keep adjusting while we're talking, but Westbrook gets traded from Houston to the Washington Wizards for John Wall and a first-round draft pick, and this didn't shock me because we know that Wall and Westbrook both have the same kind of contract. Like Wall's due some $100+ million over the next 3-4 years. We know that Westbrook's due $100+ million for the next 4 years. So the salaries, it made sense. The rumor mill was talking that these two teams were talking about swapping point guards, and and I don't want to get into the Knicks quite yet because they kind of get affected in this. But personally, I was sitting here. When the trade happened, I wasn't shocked. And then as I'm getting ready for the show, I'm thinking about the trade, and I'm like, for some reason, I feel like this trade benefits maybe Washington a little bit more than it does Houston, in a simple fact of, with Houston's such a question mark because you get the first-round draft pick or future first-round draft pick from Washington, right? But the question mark is John Wall. The man is never healthy. This man has had the same knee issues now going on the last 2 or 3 years. And if you're Houston, it's like, okay, if John Wall goes down, are we in a worse position than we are now? Because James Harden, in my opinion, first of all, let me just say this. First of all, I feel like Houston's a team, as long as James Harden is on the squad, is a team that really doesn't need to have a point guard. Like, if you're going to have a point guard, it's kind of like the Philadelphia 76ers when they had Iverson, and your point guard is like Aaron Snow.
Yeah, or Aaron McKee.
Yeah. Or if you're the Chicago Bulls, you have Mike and your point guards like Ron Harper. I'm not saying Ron Harper or Eric Snow, these guys are garbage. I'm just saying these are guys who don't really need the ball, that are just point guard by name.
Good defense.
And really just a fifth guy on the floor. That's where I feel Houston is at. And to be honest with you, that's what I feel like that's what they get in a John Wall, for the simple fact of John Wall can't stay healthy. Where in Washington, depending on what you do with Bradley Beal, the Wizards, or I feel like Westbrook can kind of take over this team. Maybe what the Wizards was looking for in John Wall, if he could stay healthy, because you know that there's still talks about Beal potentially leaving Washington. I still think that the Lakers might have their hand in that pot, or at least keeping an eye on things. But I honestly really think that Washington has a slight edge over, because you just get the Westbrook / Harden thing wasn't going to work out in Houston. So now you take Russell Westbrook, you put him in the East Coast, and now you got John Wall. Now he's in Houston. So we'll see. But what were your thoughts on the trade? I personally thought Washington may have a slight edge, but if you look at it salary-wise too, I just really think Washington was just trying to move on from John Wall, just for the simple fact that he couldn't stay healthy.
Yeah, no, I think you and I probably echo the same sentiment, which is that I don't think either team loses in this trade per se, because Houston gets the same mold of player that they had in the first place, but apparently James Harden had a preference for John Wall, so that was something that went kind of reverberated. Remember, like, Houston made a lot of movement. They fired Mike D'Antoni. Daryl Morey's no longer around, and they were really shocked to see some of the KD statements about, like, I've been recruiting to James Harden to Brooklyn, and like, a couple days later he comes out and says, I never said that. I haven't talked to James. So clearly Houston is very invested in keeping James around. But I agree with you. I think the Wizards win the trade because, first of all, it's a protected first-round pick. So it's not like you can get – if the team tanks in the next year, you're not going to be giving up that pick, and more than likely it'll be deferred to a later year. So – And also something we didn't mention, Scott Brooks, the coach of the Wizards, was a former coach of Russell Westbrook when he was in Oklahoma City, and some of his best years in Oklahoma City were under Scott Brooks. So I think one thing that's really getting thrown around in the trade is the injury stuff, and I think you mentioned it with John Wall. I think Houston understands what they are at this point. They're a fractured team that, remember, the vision for this team was made by Daryl Morey and Mike D'Antoni, and these guys are no longer around. So it makes no sense to continue to play in that style, continue to, run what you thought you were going to run with Westbrook and Harden. And I think, Westbrook and Harden have done a good job of keeping up the appearances in public. Like, they have, reached out to each other on social media, have been working out together. So clearly there's no friction between them, but I think both of them thought, this probably isn't going to work in Houston.
Exactly. And, one thing that there's some comments on Travis Lee Johnson said it's like trading an STD for cancer, the Wall Westbrook trade. And then Christian says he thinks that the Wizards won the trade. Yeah. I got a message the other day from one of my friends who's a Knicks fan, and he messaged me. He's like, "Hey, did you see the trade?" And I was like, "Yeah, I just did." And he was like, "I thought he was coming to the Knicks. This is why I don't claim to be a Knicks fan and this and that and everything else." And to be honest with you, as I sit and I look back at it, look at the trade and whatnot. This trade, the Westbrook Knicks fans need to understand that the Knicks at some point can't keep repeating the same mistakes as we've done in the past to think that stuff is still going to work. Okay, The Knicks have to be a team that cannot keep doing what I call pretty much putting a Band-Aid on something that needs stitches. So I remember when I was still out there in Illinois, you had put up on your Facebook status a like this long Reddit post on everything that Gardner has done in their tenure with coaching changes, drafting situations, free agent situations. And I'm talking about like like a book report on every L that they've done. If a Knicks fan was able to go back to at least 2010 and do the same thing, the post would be as long, if not longer. But for the sake of the show, I'll condense it. Okay, let's talk about the same New York Knicks team that traded 2 first-round draft picks to the Chicago Bulls for Eddie Curry because they signed Jamal Crawford and they were both best of friends. And Isaiah Thomas thought that it would be a genius idea to mortgage our future for Eddie Curry.
Ouch.
But here, I'm not done with that. How about the same Knicks team that traded what did they do? Oh, when they had Anthony Hardaway's precious contract, where you could have got draft picks galore. What did Isaiah Thomas turn around and do? Traded it to the Houston Rockets for Steve Francis when the Knicks had Stephon Marbury already as a point guard.
Yeah.
And for some reason, Isaiah thought that bringing in Steve Francis with Stephon could have mirrored him and Joe Dumars.
Yeah.
No, it didn't flip and work. I'm not even done. How about when the Knicks missed out on Steph Curry and Isaiah Thomas, who's a better talent evaluator than he'll ever be a GM, told the New York Knicks to draft Brendan Jennings if you miss out on Steph Curry. What did the Knicks brass do? They went out and drafted Jordan Hill and then traded Jordan Hill for an aging T-Mac who didn't even re-sign with the Knicks. Oh, no, it only gets better. How about the same Knicks team who are on the up and up, and if they would have just waited one more, just not even one more year, how about maybe just 5 more months when Carmelo Anthony would have been an unrestricted free agent? And what did the Knicks do? They went and traded a whole package, a whole starting 5 plus 2 first-round draft picks for Melo and Chauncey, and they end up using their amnesty clause on Chauncey Billups. The New York Knicks have always been that team where they feel like they need that guy to be in New York, and we keep selling draft picks and future guys and draft picks and future guys for something that's not working.
Yeah.
As much as I think that the Knicks need a point guard, Russell Westbrook may or may not have been. Like, I was on the fence. At one point, I was like, you know what, let's do it. But then I'm thinking, you're going to have to trade. You know they're going to want Mitch or RJ, so you have to trade one of those guys. Then you're going to have to give up Knox. Then you're going to have to give up multiple draft picks. Then you have to make the salaries make sense. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So Knicks fans need to, once again, look at the Brooklyn Nets, bro. How long did the Brooklyn Nets suck after their debacles? We can do a Reddit thing on them with their debacles. How long did they suck before they became irrelevant? Why? Because once Pakarov kind of wanted to sell the team, fired the GM, and went in a new direction, the best thing that the Nets did, maybe outside of signing Kyrie and Kevin Durant, which I wish the Knicks would have tried and do, was go out and sign a young point guard. How better were the Nets when D'Angelo Russell was running the show?
Yeah, remember they traded first round pick and what was like Timothy Mozgov or something like that to the Lakers in that trade to get Russell, and that wasn't really that much. And then the next year, this guy was like one of the most improved players in the league.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. So I'm okay with the Knicks standing pat. I'm okay with the roster. Do I expect the Knicks to go out and win championships? No. Do I expect the Knicks to make the playoffs? Maybe, but not really. I just want this team to be competitive.
Yeah.
That's all I'm asking. I don't want the Knicks to keep coming out here and losing by 25, 30 points in the third quarter, and then the game is unwatchable from there. I'm hoping that RJ fixes his free throw woes, because he could do everything but shoot free throws. I want the Knicks at some point to improve with the young kids that they have. There's going to be growing pains. Okay, the Brooklyn Nets went through their growing pains. Teams go through their growing pains. Even the great Oklahoma City Thunder had to suck for a while to get both KD or the Seattle Sonics to get both KD and Russell Westbrook. So for Knicks fans to be crying the blues because we didn't get Russell Westbrook and because we didn't pay $30 million a year for a guy that's maybe played 30 games in the last 2 years in Gordon Hayward, let's talk about that as well. So I like what the Knicks did in stand pat. Let the kids play. Let's give them a core. How about let's get them some type of chemistry with one another. Yeah. Then we can worry about bringing veteran guys.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that the salaries don't match there. Like the Knicks were not going to be able to put a package together that was going to entice either for John Wall or Westbrook. That's the real key part about this trade is the salaries match perfectly, and it was just a straight swap and that first round pick. And I honestly, when it comes to teams like the Knicks, the Bulls, and some of these other teams that have sort of fallen from grace and are back in the sort of just, in the back of people's minds when it comes to, who's competitive and who's not, it really makes no sense to go all in like that. Like, okay, I will, any Knicks fan who tries to make that argument to me about, we should have gotten Russell because it would have done this, and that, I would have humored them and asked them, okay, well, next year, you have Russell Westbrook and who? A ragtag, bunch of guys, because remember, you had to give up a bunch of guys to get him, right? So you gave up a few guys to get him, draft picks to get him, probably gave up what you got back from the Mavs for Porzingis, so that didn't even really help you out too much in the long run when, remember the whole thing with the Porzingis, it happened fast. It was like he walked into the office, said he didn't see a future, and 2 weeks later, what do we see? That trade to Dallas. And I think the one thing that really is shining through all of this is that, fans are getting frustrated right now. Like, Bulls fans are too right now. Like, I think there's a lot of Bulls fans who have the right mindset about this offseason and understand, like, okay, there wasn't much that we could do. Like, we're going to pay Otto Porter $20-something million a year next year, and it's going to be really tough for us to have any flexibility outside of that. And I think you just try and take what you can get from the young core. I'm happy that we got Patrick Williams. I'm happy that Kobe White can kind of develop a little bit. Excited to see what Lauri Markkanen and Wendell Carter and some of these other guys can do. So I'm in the same boat as you right now. Like, I have my expectations for my team, especially in basketball, is very low. It's just like, let's go out there and be competitive, and like you said, let's not get blown out in the first half. So I have to switch channels.
Exactly, dude. And the Knicks had plenty of those games last year, but other things in the NBA, dude. AD finally signed his contract. Yeah. So he got 5 years, $190 million. So as expected, AD does go back to the Lakers. Basically, what AD did was, or I say what the Lakers did was, they got a few pieces here and there, and then the leftover money they had left, they extended LeBron James, got 2 years, $85 million contract extension, and then obviously AD gets the 5-year, $190 max. So,
and by the way, I don't want to cut you off, but that's criminally low for LeBron James, Nick. 40. You're paying. The Rockets are going to pay John Wall $41 million next year, and the Lakers will be paying LeBron something around 43.
Exactly. I was thinking the same thing, but I'm like, man, that's a crazy contract extension. And then because I was worried, I was like, man, why hasn't AD signed with the Lakers yet? Because clearly he didn't take the qualifying offer, which means he was going to be able to get more money if he didn't accept it. And then obviously this is where we're at. Because remember when we did the show last week, we were talking about how maybe that there was rumors that Giannis could have been interested in coming to LA. And now all of the rumors that I've been seeing now is that the Dallas Mavericks might actually have their hands in the Giannis pool, because we know that Luka's still on his rookie deal. Kristaps got his contract extension, and now it sounds like that the Dallas Mavericks want to go out there and get a Giannis. And I think that, to be honest with you, if that happens, I think Dallas is going to be something good. But at the same time, it depends on if what's his name can stay healthy. KP.
Yeah.
You know, a healthy KP makes the Dallas Mavericks a dangerous team.
Yeah.
You know, obviously he's 7'3", the man can shoot, he can kind of play inside, but that's supposed to be like your Dirk replacement. And we know how valuable Dirk was, especially after Michael Finley left, to that Dallas squad over the years. So KP needs to stay healthy. But to be honest with you, I like that move, and I think that move personally makes more sense than him going to LA, because if I'm not mistaken, Giannis is the same guy who admitted that he didn't want to go to like a big market. He didn't want to go to a New York. Yeah. He didn't want to go to an LA. He didn't want to go to a Chicago. He wanted to stay in a small market to play competitive basketball. Dallas happens to be not so much a big market in the NBA, but they're a competitive team, and that's a lot of size for a 7'3" KP, a 6'11" or 6'10", whatever Giannis is, and then you got a 6'9" point guard in Luka Doncic. If Giannis does leave Milwaukee to go to Dallas, I think Dallas is really making noise. That'd be a great move there by Mark Cuban and the boys.
Yeah, Dallas is creeping right now in the NBA because they've got lots of cap flexibility over the next 2 years. And like you mentioned, Luka's still on his rookie deal, which I think they could extend for a 5th year next year. So they would have 2 more years of him at a relatively low rate, which is really valuable in this league right now. If same with like the NFL, if you draft your QB and, your QB is a first-round pick, and you are only going to be paying them $20 million less than what other teams pay their QBs. It gives you a lot of flexibility, right? So similar to that. But one thing I want to mention to you, because I've been reading a lot of Reddit conspiracy boards recently, and one of the things that came, because Rich Paul and Anthony Davis were actually very vocal last year that they were actually going to be looking for a 2-year extension. They didn't want to go 5 years. They were worried to be locked down. And with the growing CBA and the NBA game growing so much, I think AD was worried that he was going to be stuck in a stagnant salary in 3 or 4 years. But another really interesting thing that I saw on that Reddit conspiracy board is that LeBron is setting himself up for signing with the team that drafts Bronny. We're 2 years away from Bronny being official. The rule change for the NBA draft is on its way. It's not there yet, but they are going to go. The sense is they are going to go back to the 18-year-old, you're eligible for the draft right away type of deal, which we saw plenty in the 90s and early 2000s. And technically speaking, if that goes into effect in 2 years, Bronny would be eligible to come into the league. And what LeBron did for himself essentially is, we talked about how that was a really team-friendly deal, which I don't know what LeBron just must be making $300-400 million outside the NBA, because he's like,
I swear,
he just doesn't care what he's getting paid in the NBA. He's like constantly criminally underpaid. In Miami, he was criminally underpaid. Bosh was making more than him for most of that Miami tenure. So he's setting himself up for some flexibility. And one of the rumors is that he is hell bent on playing with Bronny. And that it was one thing that he just kind of is visualizing here. And the Lakers are supportive of that because they hope that they can get championships again over the next 2 years, and maybe hopefully be able to make a move for Bronny. But we don't know what that's going to look like in 2 years. Like, a lot of people already assuming that Bronny's going to be the number 1 pick. I don't know that that's true. Like we don't know what's going to happen over the next couple of years. But yeah, I've been reading a lot of conspiracies about how AD took the 5-year deal because he realized that Bron was going to do that 2-year deal. And Rich Paul has been sort of keen on making sure that LeBron is happy because, LeBron, let's be honest, Rich Paul should be kissing the feet that LeBron walks on because Clutch Sports is basically like 90% to do with LeBron and his involvement in the league. So it would be an interesting thing because I don't think we've ever, I know we've seen it in like baseball and some of these other sports, but have we ever seen a father-son duo in the NBA? I don't think that's ever happened.
I don't think it's ever happened either. And what the crazy thing about LeBron is? I agree with you. I think LeBron James is making so much money outside of the NBA that a 2-year, $85 million deal is just basically like
chump change. Put that in the savings account.
I swear to God, dude.
Yeah.
Because think about it. This is the same guy that signed like what kind of ridiculous deal, a shoe deal before he was even drafted.
Yeah, that's true.
He's got all kinds of TV shows where he's got his hands in. LeBron James has got the Sprite deal. And, obviously we know that LeBron is very marketable outside of the NBA. So I'm with you. I think he's making guap of money somewhere to where he's not even fretting about saying, James Harden is making more than me and I won a championship before he did. And and that's the one argument that I've always said when it comes to all these comparison games that we play, when it comes to the NBA, why can't we just enjoy the people in the area that we're in?
Yeah. It always has to be a comparison.
Right. Like, why is it every time we look up, it's always the, first it's the Michael versus LeBron debate, and then somewhere Kobe gets involved in, and it's like, LeBron can't hold Kobe shoes and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the day, I'm just like, dude, I just like to sit back and watch LeBron James play basketball. Clearly, he's still the best player in the NBA, or top 3, depending on who you talk to. But the consensus to most people is LeBron is still the best in the NBA. The man is 30 plus years old, but he still plays
40.
as if he's 20 plus years old.
Yeah.
The man is never hurt. LeBron is never in the news for anything. So, I mean anything negative per se. So my thing is, I just enjoy watching LeBron. I hate that he beats up on the Knicks all the time, but he's still one of the best players in the NBA. So what are we fretting about? But dude, I agree with you. I think that I think LeBron James pretty much to chump change because this man easily could have got $50 million as far as we're concerned from the Los Angeles Lakers. He was like, you know what? It ain't like I need the bread that bad. I'll take this one, pay AD, and then we'll figure everything else later. But for the moves that the Los Angeles Lakers have made, I like what the Los Angeles Lakers have done because I feel is the Lakers pretty much did what they were supposed to do. The window for the Lakers to win a championship was wide open when Golden State pretty much got hurt. Steph, Clay got hurt, KD left, Steph then ends up getting hurt. It was supposed to be a down year for Golden State anyway, so whatever. And the Lakers took full advantage of it. They were the number 1 team in the West. They beat up on Portland. And the funny thing about their playoff tenure was I think they lost the first game in all 3 of the Western Conference series. They lost the first game to Portland and took them out 4-1. They lost the first game to Houston and took them out 4-1. And I think they lost the first game to Denver, took them out 4-2.
Yep.
So they went out and took care of business. And then how smart are the Lakers now? Okay, we're the champs. We have a bullseye on our back. So let's go out and make better moves. So we're going to basically steal Montrezl Harrell from the Clippers to the Lakers. Then we're going to add a little bit more size. So let's bring in Marcus Gasol. And then they made another plethora of re-signing and let go and those kind of moves. I like what the Lakers have done coming into this year. I just think it sucks that the season is starting so soon.
Yeah.
But I like what the Lakers have done this year, and I can't see how they're not favorites to win the NBA championship coming into this year.
Yeah, remember how last year we were talking about how they have too many players who do the same things? Like,
Right.
Danny Green and KCP do the same thing. JaVale McGee, Dwight Howard do the same thing. Kyle Kuzma, they had a plethora of players that basically did the same thing. And what they realized was, oh, you know what? Maybe it's nice to have a Marc Gasol who can handle the ball, pass within the post, distribute from the post. Maybe it's good to have, imagine what it's going to be like for defenses to have to defend Kyle Kuzma, and then he comes off the floor, and then you have to defend Montrezl Harrell. And then, next thing Danny Green's no longer around, but he still got KCP. And then Dennis Schroeder shows up, and he is just one of the, longest, best defenders in, as far as backcourt is concerned. They were very calculated. And honestly, Rob Pelinka, dude, like, this is a former agent. This isn't a guy who has a lot of, experience as a GM or in operations. This is a guy who was basically he got the job because he was Kobe's agent. Like that. Let's be honest about what Rob Pelinka is. He had a very good relationship with Jeannie Buss and the Buss family, and really a lot of people remember that whole Magic Johnson debacle where like Magic Johnson was like, he like quit overnight and then and then basically said he got forced out, and the Lakers were like looking really, really bad all of a sudden. And next thing you know, Rob Pelinka, I gave him some flack for the moves last year because I didn't think that was enough to do it in a regular season. And this may be controversial, but I'll hold my stance on that. I think the bubble really helped a team like the Lakers last year because, it was such a top-heavy league when the bubble came. So the best players were carrying the teams. And you saw that with like Devin Booker in the Suns. You saw that in the East with Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler with the Heat. So, and not so much, Giannis, I know, that's a tough argument to make. But just overall, the Lakers have done such amazing business moves over the last couple of years. And I would imagine that they've left themselves some flexibility too. Like, let's say, for example, Bradley Beal, the Lakers get off to a rough start. 3 weeks before the deadline, they're in the, sixth spot in the West, not where you want to be. They still have flexibility to go out and get a Bradley Beal. They still have flexibility to go out and trade for somebody because they have a couple contracts they can move. Kyle Kuzma's a nice little piece you can add to the puzzle. So they're not done, and they're going to get some more minimum veteran contracts that will surprise some people as well. And even like the Marc Gasol move, like Marc Gasol could have went to a lot of different places, made a lot of money, probably would have never came close to a championship, but and there's rumors of Pau maybe coming back at this point. I saw some videos of Pau, against some poor 5-foot Spanish dude who was in the post against Pau, and Pau's just abusing the guy, and like, Pau Gasol back to working out. It's like, get him working out with at least 6-foot dudes, please, that he can get some real work in. But yeah, no, that the really interesting part about the NBA, and I'm glad you mentioned it. I'm really interested to see what happens with this early start. Because, and I really hope I'm not right, but that has injury bug written all over it. You have, there's a reason why there's a training camp, right? We talk about it with football. The reason why you have preseason is not because you're going to love it entertainment-wise. It's because these guys need that time to be able to adjust their bodies and just adjust their skills overall. It's going to be really interesting to see because when it's all said and done, what is it, the 22nd? So we're talking about almost 3 weeks from now, and no more than almost 3 months, no more than 3 months removed from the last time they were playing a season. That's pretty crazy to think about, and I'm hoping and praying that this isn't a season where we get a lot of season-ending injuries.
Yeah, exactly, because we're definitely was getting those in the beginning of the NFL season. Just everybody and their mama was tearing their ACLs because basically it was, okay, guys, you're going to have to work out at home. We're going to do Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
We'll try and maybe sneak a practice in here and there, this and that. And then, boom, right into game time, everyone's going full speed. And I'm like, no, that's not how the game's supposed to work. And the next thing you know, this guy tore his ACL, that guy tore his ACL, this one tore his meniscus, this one's got an Achilles tear. It was just injury upon injury upon injury because everyone's going full speed. It's basically like when you go to a pool, they tell you to shower before you go in. A, to rinse off whatever crap might be on you. And B, usually when you shower before you go in the pool, it's not as cold. And I mean, this is the same thing. Like basically like stretching before you work out.
Yep.
9 times out of 10, it's not recommended to just walk into the gym, go dead on the treadmill, and then just put it up to
start sprinting,
like 10 speed. Yeah, exactly, without stretching out.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm with you with the NBA season, where I guess the team that it really affects the most is the Lakers, because the Lakers are the first preseason game, so they're really only had 70-plus games to really go home, relax, be with the family. Yeah. Now it's like, okay, now I got to work out because the training camps are starting and the preseason will come up here pretty soon. So
can I ask you? I want to ask you something really quick before, because I want to talk to you a little bit about the predicament that the NHL is in right now. Are you surprised that the NBA didn't go back to the bubble?
I am, because it worked.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm saying? And it's like it worked.
Yeah.
It's
simple as that.
It's gonna suck. I think the NBA was between the perennial rock and hard place, because it's like, okay, we want to protect these guys and make sure these guys aren't coming down with the COVID, so let's do the bubble. At the same time, are you really going to ask these guys to stay away from their families, locked up in a room where people can't come in and out for anywhere between 6 to 8 months? I mean, not necessarily. So I think that's where they were. But I thought that for the safety of the players, I thought the bubble would have made more sense.
Yeah. And I mean, this time around, with everything that we know and with all the precautions being in place, realistically, like, families could have joined, right? But still, nobody wants to have their family out of the Disney resort and, eat cafeteria food every single day. So I think that played a part in it too. But the reason why I'm asking is because the NHL is very pensive about making a move for their season. They are going to wait. The rumor is that Gary Bettman is basically telling everybody and every owner that, hey, I wouldn't anticipate that this season's going to look the way that you would anticipate it's going to look. They still haven't made an official announcement. I think they said January 1st is going to be something that they're going to really try and target as far as maybe the beginning of the official season. But they have made it known to the owners, we're going to really hope and pray that this plan kind of gets us back into the regular season schedule of 2021 and 2022. So the NHL has already started sort of wishy-washy. And again, I imagine, we talk about this a lot on this show, I imagine that has a lot to do with greed, and that, like, owners are, like, not wanting to give up the few 100,000 that they may make from the games. And to me, that's dangerous, because you're putting profit over the safety of the players.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And the funny, I think the NHL also at some point is going to have to, I guess, they fight with the Canadian government. I think the Canadian government really has a lot to do with it too, because they're very gung-ho of saying, hey, look, we're not America. We've been listening to the scientists. We've been following the rules. The COVID isn't really running rampant up here. And the last thing that we need is a bunch of, to bring Americans into our country who haven't really been following the protocol. And then it goes back to being, what it was before. And I respect that. That's why, and I think we mentioned this last week when we were talking about Canada was talking about doing a division where it's just all Canadian teams. And guess what? I'm all for it, dude. I mean, it's not that many. I mean, what do you got? You got Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Ottawa, Montreal, Toronto.
Toronto, yeah.
That sounds about right. Yeah, that's all your Canadian. So if the Canadian government is really gung-ho about not having Americans come up there, then we can nip this in the bud.
Yeah.
Let all the Canadian teams, just for this year until we nip all this in the bud, let them be just one division. We'll realign some of the divisions down here, and we'll just have to make it work for a year.
Yeah.
I'm all for that. But maybe because of my own personal greed when it comes to the Rangers and how good I think they're going to be this
Yeah.
year, I need the NHL season to come on with it.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
need them to come on with it because I just read 2 reports that the Rangers didn't let their number 1 draft pick from this year, Alexis Lafreniere, go play for Canada in the Junior World Championship Cup. And they also didn't let our number 2 pick last year, Capo Kakko, go represent Finland in the same tournament.
Yeah.
So the Rangers are like, nah, man, you guys are ours now. We can't afford you going anywhere, getting sick for any reason. Just stay home, and let's just work on the team because you guys are an integral part of our future.
Yeah.
Which lets me know how good this team is going to be. So I'm going to need I need Gary Bettman in the NHL and pretty much the Canadian government to figure something out so we can get the season going.
Yeah, and one thing I think that maybe complicates it a little bit too is that COVID thrives in the cold, and that the research shows that it dies in the sun and dies, in the heat, and that it thrives in the cold. So one of the basic tenets of the game is it being cold, and that's kind of a tough spot to be in. And again, I think the NHL is also not controversially going to be waiting for the vaccine. I think too. That's another huge thing. Is I think they're waiting to see which shoe drops first, because we've got. I think. What's understated right now is that we're in the middle of a presidential transition. In the next few, next month or so, we're going to see a presidential transition, a new administration, and that administration has made it very clear that they're not going to be giving the same freebies as the current administration is. Remember when COVID first hit, Trump and his people gave Florida the okay, all right, you guys are essential business, so wrestling can go there, what, Florida, go ahead and do your thing. And I'm not so sure that the next administration is going to be so keen on doing that. So I think that has a lot to do with it right now too. And also I think that's why the NBA just said fuck it, because they were like, what, we don't want to start it this early, but at the end of the day, I think the one thing I was surprised about is that both the Players Association and the owners agreed that waiting any longer really doesn't do you any good. I think they all understood that having the NBA on Christmas is really, really important to their brand. Just like the NFL has Thanksgiving, NHL has New Year's and after, and then you've got baseball with the 4th of July and the summer. The NBA, it's so important that they're on Christmas. So I think that was another huge part of it, of balancing the pros and the cons and saying, what, we're gonna have to get this going eventually. I don't think anybody was going to be sitting out. They're already starting to talk about deadlines for people who may want to sit out the season. To me, that's an option you give to players, but players who opt out of the season, to me, I don't know, man. I have a hard time. Last time around, I really understood and I really sympathized with people when they said they were going to opt out. This time around, you have to give me a reason as to why, and it's going to have to be family-related, health-related, stuff like that. Because otherwise, man, there's going to be a lot. I'm telling you, there's going to be a lot of bums, 10th, 11th, 12th guys on the bench who are like, I'll take the COVID money and stay at home. I'll be good with that.
Right.
So, I think that you're right, though. I think all the leagues right now are in the rock and the hard place spot right now, because it's really a lose-lose situation. You're going to lose money either way. You might as well just try and get as much as you can out of it.
Right. This just popped in my head. I'm sorry I didn't bring this up earlier, but is it safe to say that LeVar Ball is sitting and just laughing at everybody's face at this point?
He's got the evil laugh going.
Here's a guy who, people can say whatever they want about LeVar. People are like, oh my God, he was living through his kid's vision and this and that. And here's the crazy part. Lonzo Ball, a few years ago, number 2 pick in the draft. LaMelo Ball, this year, number 3 pick in the draft. LiAngelo just got traded to the Detroit. I'm not traded, but was signed by the Detroit Pistons from the D League. And the interesting part was we knew how good Lonzo was. We saw him in UCLA. We kind of saw Melo. What's his name? LeVar took him out of Chino Hills High School, had him played overseas, got his eligibility. I mean, LaMelo, I think, is going to be a fine player in the league. But the question mark always was LiAngelo, because remember, LiAngelo went, where'd he go to? UCLA, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and I mean, remember, he had that whole issue with the shoplifting in China.
Right. And then President Trump had to come and get him out.
D-Trizzle.
And then D-Trizzle had to come in and shake his fist, and the Chinese let him go.
Yeah.
And then it was like really no question, because LeVar, we all know that LeVar had that incident, which I'm not going to tell people how they feel and how they're not supposed to feel, but I thought that when the whole thing with him and Molly Quorum Rose, was taken way out of context.
Yeah.
I don't think LeVar Ball, he might be a loudmouth, and he might love the sound of his voice, and he may say things that are so off the cusp, and that's why I like him, because it reminds me a lot of me. But
yeah.
To think that he made that sexual gesture remark when she was like, let's switch gears, and he was like, man, we can switch gears anytime. I don't think that it was taken the way that it was.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, he gets banned from ESPN. The man goes on FS1 with LiAngelo, and with all the confidence in the world, this man came and said, when Skip Bayless said, who do you think could be the next scoring champion in the league? The man said his own son, LiAngelo, would be the scoring champion of the league one of these days.
Father of the year.
But here's the funny thing. Everyone said everything they wanted to, but here's a guy who believed in his sons, hyped the piss out of them, and all three of them in the NBA. So you got to give kudos and credit where it's due. LeVar Ball is seeing all three of his sons, no matter what you think of them, are on the NBA. And to be honest with you, I'm actually anxious of the three of them to see how LiAngelo plays.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because I'm not saying he's going to be a scoring champion, but I don't think this kid's going to be garbage.
No. Yeah, I don't want to say something too controversial, but I guess I'll just go ahead and say it. It's like black parents in this country are in a lose-lose situation. It's like, you are constantly being scrutinized about the way that you parent and the manner in which you parent, and just every single move is being scrutinized, and you're not allowed to make mistakes anymore. I mean, that is even like mental mistakes in language. I think I saw Jalen Rose, who's Molly Karam's husband, talk to DJ Vlad about that situation, and he had said, and I don't like DJ Vlad, I just want to put that out on record, but I don't like him at all, but I watched that, and Jalen was basically talking about how he had a relationship with LeVar, and he knew LeVar, and they texted back and forth, and he was disappointed about what happened, but he didn't take the same sort of offense as everyone took, and that him and, he had asked to talk to Molly, and that, he wanted to be able to rectify things, but you can't win if you're LeVar Ball at this point, because people have already made their judgments on you, the Triple B stuff, and he's always going to be a meme for the Jordan stuff, and he's always going to be a meme for the way that but no one wants to talk about what this guy did. He is a guy who has 3 sons in the NBA. I mean, that is staggering. And what's even more staggering is 6 years ago, he told everybody this. He said, my sons are going to be in the NBA, all 3 of my sons. And he willed it. I mean, LiAngelo, he's not the most gifted player in the world. LaMelo has the handles, the flashiness, the passing. Lonzo has the ability to move and the athleticism, but LiAngelo is just kind of, he's just going off of the momentum of being a ball brother, and good for him, because there's plenty of guys in the league who, really didn't have all the skills to do what they do, but they found their way into the league anyway. So, I think it's tough for LeVar Ball, and you know what, I've been proud about because LeVar could have went on every single TV show and gone, fuck you, I told you, da-da-da. And I think he's handled it with a lot more class than people are giving him credit for, because really, again, I would be on every single TV show that lets me on saying, I told you, motherfuckers. So I think it's really important to understand that, like, this guy is... Say what you want about his mannerisms, how he talks, whatever, his brashness, his sort of like, he's a little bit too into himself, saying but this is, first of all, this is personality. Like, that's what that is. Like, when somebody mentions that Molly Karam thing to me, that's a guy who is an old school guy who's kind of like talking, he's going back and forth. It's smart ass talk, right? It's not like I'm being a misogynist or I'm going to, talk sexual to this person. This is somebody who's sharp with the tongue. And it's like, he's going back and forth with you. And to me, again, it's a lose-lose situation for him. And I'm glad, one thing I'm glad about is the whole Triple B thing went away because, and it went away pretty embarrassingly. I don't know if you heard the story, but, Lonzo's manager tried to steal some money, and then the business ended up going under, and the product wasn't good. But say it is a monumental achievement what he's done. He's took the money that he's earned as a former NFL player, an NBA player. Was LeVar even in the NBA? I think he played with the Panthers.
I think for a little bit, but I don't think he really played that much.
Guy who collected his check, went and built a brand in California, and look at what you got to see out of it. And I actually am one of those guys who believes that both Lonzo and Melo have a chance to be all-stars in this league. I really, really do believe that.
Agreed. Especially Lonzo. I think that Pelicans team, I don't know if you saw the chart. I saw it earlier before we came on to the show about how many teams have nationally televised games. And the NBA must love, well, I shouldn't say the Pelicans. I think they just love Zion. But
yeah.
They have four. The Lakers obviously have the most. I think they have 16 nationally televised games. The Pelicans are in like a four-way tie with like Boston, Miami, and somebody else with 14 nationally televised games, which includes a Christmas Day game. And I looked at the Christmas Day schedule, and there's a lot of people who are New York fans, and there are a lot of people who aren't New York fans who still don't understand why the NBA consistently takes New York off the Christmas schedule.
Yeah.
Like, even though the Knicks suck, in the NFL, Detroit sucks, Dallas sucks, but every year you see them on TV because it's tradition. How is the largest market in America have a team that's not on Christmas Day?
Yeah.
Even if you put them at the 12 o'clock game like they usually do, there's no excuse why the Knicks are not on the Christmas Day schedule. But they aren't again this year. And to be honest with you, I'm okay with the Knicks not being on national. They're on national TV one time this year. I couldn't tell you what it is exactly, but I'm okay with it. But to go back to your point on Lonzo, yeah, dude, I'm very anxious to see, because I agree with what you said earlier about Lonzo, about how he's kind of like Lonzo has never really been a scorer per se. He's a guy that loves to set you up. Yeah. Here's a guy that could play some really formidable defense. He's not a guy that I expect to come out and drop 30 a night, but here's a guy that I can expect 12 assists from, a few steals, might get in there for a rebound here and there, stretches the floor, has great, court vision and stuff like that. So I agree with you there, and we'll see on as far as LaMelo is concerned. But yeah, man, I'm gonna keep my eye on LiAngelo, because I'm not. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt and say he's going to be good, but we haven't really seen that much on on Jello, because Jello hasn't really played that much in UCLA because LeVar took him out, so we weren't able to see him there. But yeah, no, man, dude, I'm with you. I think LaMelo and Lonzo are going to be all stars in this league. And I agree with you. Another one, because if that was me, if my three sons would have been on there, see, that's the difference between my dad and myself. My dad has always been the humble one. I'll talk smack until the cows come home. And at the end of the day, if I had three sons and I swore up to everybody that my three sons would be in the NBA, and you laughed at me, or I'd have came back and talked smack.
Oh yeah, I would have had the media tour ready.
Yeah, and I would be like, I'm not going to say nothing else. Watch my three sons play, and they'll do all the talking for me after that.
Yeah, no, for sure, and yeah, I think that's one thing. I'm petty. I'm not afraid to be petty. Trust me. I'm gonna have all the scheduled appearances ready to do the "I told you so" tour. Okay, let me sneak in our sponsor here before we switch gears a little bit, because I know we've got a lot of football to talk. I want to talk a little bit of baseball with you as well, and we got a little UFC to wrap on because there's a UFC Fight Night tonight as well. All right, guys, rmtalk.com. You guys should be familiar with it. Rolling Meadows Talk. It's a new local news and offer website for the northwest suburbs of Chicago. Local deals, events, business directory at rmtalk.com. As you guys know, we do our live events at Reps Sports Bar in Rolling Meadows, and they're a small business, family-owned business, and they need your support now more than ever, as do all small businesses. And again, RM Talk focuses on local news and offers. So if you guys are local or are around the Rolling Meadows area, definitely check it out. Support those local small businesses and check out the local offers at rmtalk.com. I think we talked about it in previous shows, but we have some gift card matching that you can do. Essentially, you'll go and get an offer code and be able to get a free gift card when you purchase a gift card at Rep. So it's a really awesome deal to give during this holiday season. And again, let's all focus, I think, a little bit more this year, more than other years, on avoiding big box stores. Avoid the Targets. I'm not gonna be here shitting on anybody else, but I would like for us as a community to be able to support our local small businesses and small business owners more now more than ever, especially. So again, guys, check out the local offers and news at rmtalk.com. That's RM as in Rolling Meadows, Talk TALK.com.
Real quick, Will says, what's good? He said he squeezed out
Will?
Obi. Yeah, dude, very, very happy with the Obi pick. I actually read a report today. The Knicks teammates are just absolutely off the wall with the athleticism of Obi, but they said that his defense needs to improve. That's fine. That doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Yeah, we knew that.
Yeah, we knew that. Yeah. So that's nothing new. But Tom Thibodeau's a great defensive coach, so we'll see how that works out. But again, I'm excited. But you did mention about transitioning, and that will go into a question that is in. Hold on a second. There it is. Nope. There we go. All right. A baseball question actually is directed to you from Christian Randall. He says, Mack, if you could pick one, would you rather trade for Blake Snell or sign Trevor Bauer? Snell control is for 3 more years at $39 million. I want both. It would cost the White Sox Vaughn, Kopech, or Cease, and Striever. Yes, Striever for Snell. He's a White Sox fan.
Yeah, I could tell. So I mean, that's a complicated question because Trevor Bauer's not going to sign here. It's not happening, okay? I just want to be very upfront about my expectations this year. I don't think that Trevor Bauer wants to come and play for Tony La Russa. I just don't. I'm sorry. You have to remember our manager is somebody's drunk uncle, and nobody wants to play for that dude right now. So, the Blake Snell stuff, I'm not going to sell the farm for Blake Snell. No, I mean, listen, if you want to Kopech, Kopech and maybe another low-level outfielder, maybe like one of the outfielder guys that are probably not going to get a shot over the next couple of years, Basabe, some of these other guys. I would do that. But I think he said what? Vaughn, Kopech, no way. No. Vaughn is going to be the DH. Vaughn is going to be one of the DHs next year. And Cease, I believe, will be one of the starting pitchers, I believe. I think Stever's probably a guy that's going to be on the radar, but I don't think the White Sox are going to do that. I just don't think, I don't see them being able to convince Trevor Bauer, and if they do, it's going to be because they pizzade him, because the Yankees are coming with the checkbook, the Mets are going to come with the checkbook, the Dodgers are going to come with the checkbook, and if Jerry as a sign of good faith for signing his drunk friend as the manager is going to whip out the checkbook, go right ahead and do that and just sign Trevor Bauer and don't give up any guys that you have in the system right now. But I'm not a huge Blake Snell fan. I don't know why. I think, one thing that I will say is that you've got to be careful for trading for Tampa Bay Rays players because for whatever, I don't know what's in the water in Tampa Bay, Nick, but those players just tend to do really well in Tampa Bay, and then they go to other places, and there's not really much for them, right? Like Randy Arozarena, right? Like, he looked like damn near, the young Barry Bonds in the World Series this year, and this is a guy that St. Louis gave up on like just 6 or 7 months before. So, it's one of those things where you have to be really, really careful and not trade the farm for one piece. And if it's going to be one piece, I don't want it to be Blake Snell. But good question, though.
Will says, would you trade, I guess this is for me, would you trade Julius Randle, Mitchell Robinson, Austin Rivers, and 3 first-round draft picks for James Harden? No, because we've been down this road before. We did this with Carmelo, and the best we did was make the playoffs. Yeah. I don't want to just be a team that just makes the playoffs for shock value because we can get ESPN money. No, I still think that, I said this earlier, I still think the Knicks need to just stay the course. You're going to have to play the kids. They're going to have to grow together. And hopefully by year 2 or 3, by them being with one another, then we can start getting the wins. Maybe make I would still love D'Angelo Russell to be here in New York as our point guard. Try to prime away from whatever it's called, Minnesota. I know that's easier said than done. Oh, hey, speaking of which, dude, did you see the story of Cat, bro?
Yeah.
Karl Anthony Towns right now is not in a good spot mentally. I guess COVID took 6 of his family members, and his mom's in the hospital with it.
No, so his mom, so his mom actually passed away. His mom passed away. His mom passed away a few months ago, and he has other family members, but he's lost 7 total family members to COVID. And that just leads me to believe again that, when people say like COVID's the flu, it's like, no, the flu is not killing 7 of anybody's family members. I'm sorry. So, my condolences to Kat. I did see that, and what a terrible thing to have on your mind as you're, in a season where, again, there's no bubble, and, you've lost 7 family members, and likely you're not going to be able to see, you're not going to even have the confidence to go see your own father after a game. That's tough, man. That would be one of those situations. Remember I talked about earlier about like somebody who would opt out. If Cat opted out, I would not, blink. I would totally understand.
And I was just thinking the same thing. Like, at some point, the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to have to reach out to him and be like, hey, man, look, I'm not here to force you to do anything. Yes, we're in the business. Yes, this is basketball, but, man, this is your life.
Yeah.
You've gone through a lot. If you need time to just kind of get yourself together and or opt out of the season, look, we totally get it. Yeah. This is, and I know that's easier said than done because we're not owners and not trying to bring in bread. But, dude, at what point do you finally put the game aside for a second? Let's talk about what reality is going on. And here's your star player who has openly admitted that his mind is right now at a complete free fall because my family's getting sick with this COVID and they're dying. And here I am. I feel useless. There's nothing that I can do except accept the reality. So, if you're Minnesota, again, I would reach out to Cat like maybe in a couple of weeks and be like, hey man,
Yeah.
again, I'm not trying to force you and say, hey, I need you to come back. You tell us what you need to do, we'll accommodate, and we'll just work around it. So if that means we got to start the season without our star center, I'd rather you be at home and get right mentally than you being on the court. We physically see that you're not mentally in the game, and then, kind of just, I don't want to say move on, but we see that you're not mentally there.
Yeah.
And you mess yourself up, and then obviously the fans are going to be getting on you why you're playing so bad, and even though unless the story comes out. So I don't know, man. If I was Cat, I would probably stay home for a little bit until I was ready to come back out.
Yeah, and honestly, if you're the Timberwolves, it might be the best way to keep Cat around for the long term, right? To be like, listen, this is going to hurt us as an organization. We need you. You're the centerpiece of this whole thing. But, man, we really respect you as a person more than we need your value as a basketball player. And I think that goes a long way and may show Cat the type of loyalty that he needs to come back, because it's not a guarantee quite yet.
Exactly. Christian said, I heard rumors about the Mets signing for Real Muto, George Springer, and trading for Lindor. Two of those to me are legit. It's the Springer and the potential trade for Lindor. Real Muto, I'm going to keep on the fence because he came out and said he didn't want to play in New York.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and he would rather, didn't he say he would rather just stay in Philly than to go to New York?
He did say that.
Yeah.
So we'll see, because money talks, and JT Real Muto is out here saying that he wants a $200 million contract. For the 10-year, $200 million contract. I doubt if Philadelphia coughs up that kind of money. This is the same team who, well, actually, I take that back.
They gave it to Harper.
Washington, but they paid Bryce Harper all that money, so you never know. But George Springer leaving Houston to go to New York, that I could see.
Mm-hmm.
The New York Mets are in a very precarious position, because here's a team that switched owners. Cohen is now the guy. It's his money that's coming in, and he's ready to make a splash with the Mets. The one thing with the Wilpons and with Brody as their general manager was they made trades for guys way past their prime, and or made trades for guys who just couldn't pitch in New York. For instance, you go out and you trade for Edwin Diaz, who just came off of saving 57 games for the hapless Seattle Mariners. And then so the bullpen help the Mets do. And then the Seattle Mariners are like, okay, we'll trade you Edwin Diaz, but we're going to need you to put this Cano contract in there as well. So the Mets, being desperate, take the Cano contract along with Edwin Diaz. And Cano has been up and down, more down than up with the Mets. Edwin Diaz has struggled. And it's just a testament that not everybody can pitch in New York. We saw what's a good example? I'll give you a good one. How about AJ Burnett? Oh, no. I'll give you one. Sonny Gray. Sonny Gray, I was a Yankee fan when I was young. I'd love to come to New York, pitch for the Yankees. So the Yankees trade some good young pieces to bring in a Sonny Gray, and he just struggled. But then the man goes to Cincinnati and puts up a damn near Cy Young-esque type of season. So, New York's just not cut out for everyone.
Yeah.
So, but I do think that they're going to go after Lindor. I'm not sure how desperate Cleveland is going to be to trade for Lindor, because I don't feel like the Mets might have pieces, but I don't think it's pieces they're willing to part with in order to bring in a Francisco Lindor. And you also have to guarantee the fact that Francisco Lindor will re-sign with you next year in order for this deal to go down. So we'll see if he wants to stick with the Mets. But, I'm not sure about Real Muto, though.
I think Cleveland is going to stay pat until the deadline, to be quite honest. I really think, like what they did with Clevenger last year, of like just waiting till the last second and unloading him for like 7 prospects, I think that makes a lot more sense at this point, because, I think one thing that I've said about Cleveland, and I think you said it too, is like they always find pitchers. Like Bieber comes out of nowhere, Clevenger comes out of they've got like 3 or 4 guys in the bullpen that are already talking about like top 50 pitchers in the league right now. And they let go Brad Hand, who's one of the best left-handed closers in the league. They let him go for nothing because they're like, we've got like 4 or 5 guys in the wings right now. So I think Cleveland is in the position where they're like, let's wait and see. I don't anticipate that they're going to be trading Francisco before the season, and I think the only way they do that is if they get that overwhelming trade offer, which I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure if the Mets can do. If you're the Mets right now, by the way, Robinson Cano's no longer, he's, suspended for the season. You're not going to have him this season. You're also going to be looking at a team that needs reinforcements. I mean, let's be honest, the Mets were not good enough to be where they needed to be last year, even though they kept it pretty close and especially towards the end really gave a run for their money. But if you look at it right now, what does George Springer do for you if you're the Mets? Like, does he springboard you to the top of the East? I don't really think so. The Braves are still going to be better. The Phillies are still putting together a team. You've got the Marlins who came out of nowhere last year. You're constantly in this really huge, and the Nationals. Nationals are always going to be in it, especially after what happened a couple years ago. So, I really like Springer for the White Sox. I really do. I think he makes a lot of sense in right field for the White Sox. I'm really hoping he sees it the same way because I think one good thing about coming to the White Sox is you're not going to be getting the same sort of like Cubs coverage. Like, it's not going to. It's like the Mets to the Yankees in New York, right? It's like Mets players have it rough, but they don't have it as rough as Yankees players, right? So, especially media-wise. So, I think the White Sox is a nice, quiet, big market to come to. That's another huge thing. It's like, you can still come in a giant market in Chicago, but, because we're flying under the radar, I think it's a perfect place to go. So, I'm hoping for George Springer. And as far as Real Muto is concerned, if the Mets want a catcher, they just go get James McCann. Go get somebody, that can be a stopgap, because Real Muto, to me, man, putting $200 million into a catcher, first of all, I mean, I'm a little bit mad that the White Sox gave Grandal that deal last year. I like Grandal, don't get me wrong, but after seeing what he did last year and seeing what we're paying him, and then like remembering that like catchers age not like fine wine. So, like, it's tough to be a catcher in the league for a long time. Man, if you are a team and you want to give a catcher $200 million, more power to you.
Christian just stole my thunder because I was going to ask you this same question. He said he heard rumors about Chris Bryant coming to the White Sox, and he's asking you, and I was just going to ask you, would you sign for Kyle Schwarber, who was just let go by the Cubs?
Yeah, I said it on my Facebook. I would sign Schwarber and Almora. I think Almora would make a really nice fourth outfielder. Yeah, he would make a really nice fourth outfielder, and I think Schwarber would make a really nice left-handed DH. The problem is, the Cubs didn't want to pay. I think Schwarber would have been $7 million. I think Almora would have been $4 million. That's really high for both of those guys, especially because Schwarber. Remember when he came into the league, everyone was like, this guy is going to be, and, he can barely hit breaking balls. He's got a terrible on-base percentage. He's a platoon player. So if you can get him at a platoon price, $500,000, maybe $1.5 million, 1-year deal, I would take that in a heartbeat. As far as trading for Chris Bryant, I'm good on that. I'm honestly good on that. I have no interest in trading away valued assets that we've taken 5-10 years to acquire for Chris Bryant in what I feel is Chris Bryant has been overrated for almost 8 years. I mean, I still remember when the Cubs drafted him and he was supposed to be the next big thing, and then they kept him down in the minors to get more team control, and then Scott Boras came out and said, this guy's gonna be one of the best players in the league and you're driving him away, and da-da-da. Listen, dude, I'm good on Chris Bryant. I think if I'm the Cubs, I'm certainly looking to unload Chris Bryant, and that's part of the problem is no good team who likes the player and believes the player is good is going to want to trade them. Let's just put it out there like that, okay? The Cubs, I understand they're trying to suck right now, but Chris Bryant, to me, for what you would have to give up to get him, is just not worth it. I'd rather go in the free agency.
He also asked, how about Darvish to the White Sox because the Cubs are cutting payroll?
Yeah, but again, you're going to have to give up pieces. You don't want to do that.
Right, because I was going to say, do you Darvish in a White Sox jersey? I would be for that. Why? Because you're seeing maybe either you was on to something or he's just been improving. But remember, this is the same guy when he was in his last year in LA was the cheating scandal with Houston. And then his first year with the Cubs was kind of shaky because when he was in Houston, when he was in LA and he was getting smacked around in that game where they lost like 12, 13 in extra innings or whatever. And he couldn't figure out for the life of him why he was getting smacked so hard. But we figured it out then.
Sure.
But then when he went to Chicago, I think that's when he made the infamous, I hate when fans boo me and all that other stuff. And the quote, believe it or not, holds merit because in a bubble season where there was no fans come to the game, Darvish finished top 3 in NL Cy Young.
That's a great point.
So either the Cubs figured something out, or maybe he was right because in Japan doesn't seem like the type of country or the type of fans that boo. Like they're always out there blowing in those kazoos, and baseball to me in Japan is like this. I feel like sporting events in general in Japan are like this spectacle, so to speak.
Yeah.
Where they're so happy that stuff's going on in Japan, everybody and their mama comes out. Remember when Pride FC was in Japan?
Yeah.
Those places were packed.
Little kids in the crowd.
You say it again?
Little kids in the crowd, like parents taking their little kids. Yeah.
Yes. Think about wrestling in Japan. When you listen to some of these shoot interviews from wrestlers, and they talk about going to Japan, they talk about how much fun that they have in Japan.
Yeah.
And then you look at the baseball games in Japan and even in Korean countries and Taiwan and stuff like that. There are streamers everywhere. Everyone's having fun. They like to hit, so it's more of a loose crowd. Where you come to the United States and us privileged Americans have the choice to either cheer or boo. Yeah. And when you're out there giving up 5 runs in 3 innings, we boo the piss out of you.
Yeah.
It does something to your soul. But then you play in an empty crowd, and outside of him getting G-rocked by Jose Abreu and a few other games, Darvish was money in the absolute bank.
Still won that game.
That's why I think that Christian is onto something with you going to the White Sox.
Yeah.
Not trying to diss in any way. Not trying to diss in any way, the White Sox. But I feel like even though it's the 3rd largest market, it's White Sox Chicago. Because like you just said, the Cubs get more press here than the White Sox do.
Yeah.
So you could suck and mess up, but you may not get as much a reaction from Sox fans as you would from Cub fans.
Yeah, and honestly, with me, it's about the price. It's about the price. Like, Darvish is if it's like a straight up like maybe like Michael Kopech for Darvish, I'd do that. I'd do that in a heartbeat. The problem is that he had a Cy Young type season this year, and any team worth their weight is going to get that value back, right? So, especially a team that was led by Theo Epstein and now Jed Hoyer, who basically understands the dynamics of value, and you're not going to get Darvish for free, especially in a trade. Listen. The Cubs are still pissed about the Quintana trade, okay? They are not happy still that they mortgaged both Eloy and, imagine how good Eloy looks in left field wearing number 74 and blue pinstripes, and Dylan Cease out on the mound right now for the Cubs, especially now that they don't expect to win shit this year. Right. I've heard a couple. I know the Sox need pitchers. I just don't think I don't think you do anything because remember, the White Sox are in a win now mode, and you still have to have assets for the deadline. Like if you especially with everything going on with minor league baseball, and I don't know if you heard, but they're gonna create a new minor league baseball league this year, to try and make sure that some of the top prospects in organizations get to play baseball this year, even if the minor leagues don't. So what I'm saying is that I just if you, for example, say, okay, well, we'll give you our best outfield prospect, one of our best catching prospects in Zach Collins, and one of our best starting pitching prospects. You're giving up 3 prospects for a really good player, and that's something that you maybe could have gotten in the free agency. So I'm just worried about giving up assets, to be quite honest. But I would love to have you on the South Side. Trust me, I would love to. I just don't want to give up too much.
Yeah, Christian says White Sox do need 2 starters, but one for sure.
Yeah, they do.
Lance Lynn are all rumors to the White Sox. He also says, I want both of your predictions on where any of these MLB free agents sign and players that could be traded. Well, I'm going to go ahead we talked about him just a little bit ago, but the one, JT Realmuto, I think stays in Philly. I don't think he leaves Philadelphia. What's another good one? As far as
about Bauer
is concerned,
because I really think the Dodgers are going to go hard. I really think the Dodgers are going to go hard.
I think the Dodgers are going to go hard too.
Yeah.
I don't see. The whatchamacallits have been very eerily quiet. The Yankees have been eerily quiet. They haven't really been in the news as far as trying to sign anybody or trying to get anybody or being interested in anybody. They did announce that they're going to stick with Gary Sanchez this year. I personally think that's more of an Aaron Boone move than it is a Cashman move. I think Aaron Boone has vouched for Gary Sanchez. As a matter of fact, a picture came out of Gary Sanchez, him, Miguel Andujar, and one other player are in a Dominican league right now playing baseball. So I'm pretty sure they're down there trying to hone out their skills. Also, the Yankees are going to be missing Gio Urshela away for a little bit because he had a bone spur removed from his elbow. So he'll be out for 3 months. So what is this, December? So maybe back around spring training or so. And then obviously a lot of the questions around what's going to happen with DJ LeMahieu. I think LeMahieu does end up coming back to New York to play for the Yankees. Christian says Trevor Bauer maybe with the Los Angeles Angels. I could kind of see that, or the Padres. I could kind of see that. I was thinking of that. I think Bauer goes to one of the California teams. I don't think he stays. So it could be LA Dodgers. It could be the LA Angels. It could be. But my thing is with the Angels, if you go to the Angels, that means you're just trying to get paid.
Yeah.
I don't think you're trying to win because I don't think the Angels, outside of Mike Trout, are that good of a baseball team whatsoever.
Yeah, and there's a couple other names too. I mean, Marcus Semion's a big one. He put up AL MVP type numbers 2 years ago with the Athletics, and I don't know. He's 30 years old, so I think that's the main issue with him right now is that he's been in the game for quite a while. I would anticipate that a team like the Dodgers or somebody out west would like to keep him out west because he's done really well in warm weather scenarios and done pretty bad in cold weather scenarios or non-warm weather scenarios. And another one that I think would be really interesting is the George Springer thing we talked about earlier. I think George Springer is probably I think the White Sox are definitely going to be in it. And I certainly think right now one of the teams that's not being talked about enough with George Springer is one of the teams out in the NL East because there's a couple different teams who need corner outfielders, including, I know the Marlins have the money to spend. Who knows what they're going to do, but they can, go out and get a corner outfielder. There's definitely options for Springer. I think Springer probably wants to win, so I'm really hoping he decides to come to the White Sox. But Jackie Bradley Jr. is another pretty interesting one. I think whoever he signs with is getting a Gold Glove caliber outfielder, and he's only 20. What is he? He's 31. So you're getting a pretty decent outfielder for probably not too. And you have to remember George Springer's 31 too. So it's not like you're getting the best out of George Springer himself. And another one that I think would be interesting is a guy like Nick Markakis. He will be a guy that I think will fly under the radar and sign with some contender and do really well for them. Really the number one thing that really kills me is that the pitching pool is so poor because all of them are so old. And that's one thing that you've seen with the MLB is the good pitchers get locked up early, and you're not going to see them in the free agent pool until they're 30, 31. And that's what you're seeing right now. I mean, even, the best of the pitchers that I'm seeing on this board, are in their late 20s. And, you got Alex Wood, who's 30. That's going to be an interesting one. I know Corey Kluber's 35. There's going to be teams that are still going to be vying for him sometime soon. So, yeah, I really anticipate, I don't know when to really expect to see some of these moves happening. I know we're already starting to see some stuff trickle in, but I would anticipate beginning of January, I think we'll start to see, because for some reason, historically, the last 3 or 4 years, free agency has been weird with the MLB.
Yeah, Christian says he thinks Brian McCann to the Yankees or Phillies if they lose Real Muto. I would wait about the Yankees because, again,
they have no space for him if they're keeping Sanchez.
There's no space if they're keeping Gary Sanchez, exactly. Yeah. And they're not going to get rid of Kyle Higashioka because he's more or less the personal catcher for Garrett Cole. And Higashioka can actually hit the baseball, something Gary Sanchez had a hard time doing last year. So, again, I really don't see the Yankees making any splash moves outside of them just staying healthy and trying to keep, what's his name in there? DJ LeMahieu.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really the major move that they really try to make. I mean, outside of that, though, because everything's full. Giancarlo didn't opt out of his contract. Aaron Judge is going to be supposed to be getting paid here soon. So, we'll see. But Christian also says Michael Brantley possibly to the White Sox. And how about a Liam Hendricks and Alex Colomé, two best free agent closers?
Yeah, I think Colomé is probably. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of Colomé. I call him cardiac Colomé. He's always putting guys on base. There's always he's terrible in non-safe situations. I don't think Liam Hendricks has a chance to leave the Oakland Athletics. I really think that the Athletics need to keep him around, and I think they will because say what you want about pitchers who are sort of in their 30s. Closers tend to find a way to get it done, whereas starters, maybe it's the longevity thing of having to go 6+ innings every single time, but I'm not too worried about finding somebody who's 32, 33 as a closer, whereas as a starter, you're looking at 32, 33. I don't know about that. And Michael Brantley's an interesting one. I think the Yankees showed some interest more than recently in Michael Brantley as well. So there'll probably be some competition for Brantley. He's a good left-handed hitter, but my problem with him is that he doesn't play the field very well. And
no, he doesn't.
Yeah, he would have to be like a DH. Semi-DH for us, and the big problem with that is that I think Andrew Vaughn's going to be up next year for some of that. I think Jose Abreu, it's about time that he stops playing so much first base, and then also if you're going to want Zach Collins in the mix next year, more than likely that Yasmani Grandal is going to have to play some DH in first base again. So I think in terms of a guy like Michael Brantley, I think he'll find a home with somebody with the playoff team. That's a huge thing right now. It's who is going to be able to land with the big fish. I think that's the huge thing to start. You'll start to see that Yankees, the Dodgers, to a certain extent, the Astros and some of these other teams in the AL are going to start to look at options. But I think the White Sox are in a really good position. They just have to find a way to bring somebody who is not going to cost the whole farm. That's really huge for me, man. I don't want to have to trade a bunch of pieces for a Yu Darvish or a Lance Lynn. I mean, Lance Lynn will come cheap, hopefully, but I'll take Lance Lynn any day from the Rangers. But the problem is that you got guys like even the Alex Colomé stuff. I would bring Alex Colomé back, but the problem is there's nobody really that's better than him right now. So we'll see about that. But it might be a little bit too soon for Hot Stove right now because we haven't even seen some of the qualified offers go out, I think, or being accepted yet. So we'll see about that.
Yeah, Christian also reminds me Tanaka and James Paxton are both free agents too.
Yeah.
I think Tanaka comes back. I'm on the fence about James. Me personally, I want James back because I think what hurt James Paxton was just that he was hurt this past year. His fastball wasn't the same. He was just coming off of like back surgery or something like that. And I don't think he should have pitched this year personally. His fastball usually is around 97, 98. It barely touched 94.
Wow.
And I knew something was wrong with it.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I think he had arm issues along with the back issues. So, but I just think that he needed to do exact because he said he's like, we weren't even really given no forewarning per se. It was basically, hey, this is when the season's going to start. We'll give you like 5 preseason games, and then we're going straight into the season. And it doesn't really give guys any time to kind of stretch or relax or get into game shape or anything like that. So, I guess he felt like he wasn't in shape, and it hurt him in the long run.
Yeah.
Tanaka, I don't really see going anywhere. I think the Yankees might give him something around a team-friendly deal. But you never know. Again, the team to really look out for in all this, in my opinion, are the New York Mets, because now that Steve Cohen is in, and he's going to want to make a big splash so the Mets don't suck, and he's going to have to because you mentioned it earlier. Atlanta's still the cream of the crop. You mentioned Nick Markakis earlier. I could see Atlanta. I think that's where he was last year, and I could see them keeping him there.
Yeah.
For that veteran presence, a bunch of young kids. Was it the Miami Marlins? Like you said, they came out of nowhere and all the deals, and they brought in Kim Inge as their general manager now, and maybe Derek Jeter says, hey, here's the checkbook, let's keep it around maybe 100 million, maybe 125 million. Go see what you can do. Yeah. Maybe that could happen. You mentioned, he mentioned the Phillies, or actually you did. You mentioned the Phillies. The Phillies are still that middle of the road team that could surprise certain people.
Yeah.
And then there's the Washington Nationals, who, when healthy, I know they lost Rendon and everything, and they really got hit with the injury bug, but they're still a good baseball team.
Yeah.
So, to be honest with you, if we're going to be real about it, I feel like the bottom of the barrel team in the National League East is the Mets. But as long as Steve Cohen is there, he's going to make sure that doesn't happen.
Right. Yeah. Another really interesting name that I'm not hearing a lot, David Dahl out of the Colorado. 27-year-old left-handed outfielder. I would really love for the White Sox to go after him. Jock Peterson is an interesting one. I'd like to see where he lands. Nice left-handed power bat over there. Marcell Ozuna. Another really huge right-handed power bat that the White Sox were really heavy on last year. He was like, there was like Dominican reporters saying he's coming to Chicago, and next thing you know, he signed with Atlanta last year on the 1-year deal, and he proved it, so he's going to get paid. Eddie Rosario. He was going to be a little bit too expensive for Minnesota. They had to let him go. He's a free agent. So as far as outfielders are concerned, I mean, Adam Eaton is out there, a nice, sort of piece for the top of the lineup, or a guy who can kind of get things going. There's a lot of outfielders out there. I'm more so worried about the pitching side of things, to be quite honest.
Yeah. Christian says, do you guys see Mets new owner Steve Cohen asking Met fans who he should sign. I did not, but I believe it though. I believe
That's some
it.
desperate
I think
shit.
Steve Cohen is like, look, this is not just my team. This is your team. You got to come in here and watch these guys. Tell me who you think I should sign, and I'll go out there and get them. So I believe Steve Cohen is that kind of dude. And then Christian also says he thinks Chris Bryant could be traded to Washington. Yes and no, because isn't Scott Boras an agent for Bryce Harper, and how did that work out?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
And what would they give up? That's another thing. Again, it just, people want to throw around these trades, right? The NBA, it's easy to throw around trade rumors because, value is kind of, it's not as arbitrary. NFL, it's easy to throw stuff around. But the MLB, dude, it's so hard to understand the trade value of some of these guys. Like a Chris Bryant, right? The Cubs are not going to give him up for free. They're not.
Right.
You are going to have to give up at least an MLB-ready prospect and another 2 or 3 possibly, diamonds in the rough that they can have in the minors for a couple years. So you gotta be careful with all these trade rumors because with the MLB especially, dude, you'll start to see a lot more MLB player for MLB player swaps this year, I think. In the past, it's usually like, okay, I'll give you this player, you give me 4 prospects. I'll give you 4 prospects, you give me this player. But I think you'll start to see a lot more straight up swaps, kind of like what, the Padres and the Rays did with Tommy Pham and I forgot who, I think it was Duval. Or no, it was who's that kid who hit a home run in the World Series? I'm blanking on his name, but you're going to see a lot of like MLB talent be traded for each other. Just the guys like Chris Bryant, Yu Darvish, these guys are going to be even to a certain extent, man. When you look at the money that you're going to have to pay for a guy like Real Muto or even a guy like Lindor to extend him, is that really a smart investment at this point in time? I'm not exactly sure, man. All I know is I'm knocking on wood and I'm blessed to be a White Sox fan because we sort of set ourselves up for rainy days, and it is a rainy day right now, and I think we're doing pretty well.
Yeah, right. A few more. Rockies, Herman Marquez could be a good option.
Yeah,
too,
I like him too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good.
And he also says Wilson Contreras could be a guy traded by the Cubs for the teams who lose out on Real Muto or McCann. So it seems like now that Theo's gone, it sounds like the Cubs are ready just to start over and start. And guess what? I think it's the right move.
Me too. Yeah.
Again, the Cubs win the World Series, and then they did so much to keep that momentum, but the team has regressed. You win the World Series, the next year you lose in the CS, the next year you score 2 runs in 2 games to get you to the playoffs. The year after that, you missed the playoffs, so you fired Joe Madden. And now this year you go to the playoffs, but you lose to a up-and-coming Miami Marlins team. So, when you sit and you look at the Cubs, you get rid of Kyle Schwarber. You're still under contract with the other outfielder, Jason Hayward. Mm-hmm. And then you look at your infield, and then, Chris Bryant is still out there. And then
they're going to extend Baez. They have to extend Baez.
Exactly. And then you sign Wilson Contreras to a big deal. And then as we mentioned, maybe Contreras could be on the move to free up space. Maybe you is on the move to free up space.
Rizzo.
You never know. There could be a sucker that could take that Jason Hayward contract. He could be on the move. So it feels like the Cubs are now at a part where they're going to reset. And it makes sense. Is this Cub team good enough to compete with St. Louis, to compete with Milwaukee, and shockingly enough, to put their names in it? Are they good enough to compete with the Reds? Probably not.
Yeah.
So why not reset, get what you can, try and get a team that fits the new GM and David Ross, and just move on from there. So, the Cubs are kind of you went through your glory days, and now you got to go right back up to the rebuilding days, and franchises have to do that at some point.
Yeah, and Epstein leaving has to tell you something too. As a Cubs fan, you have to take a hint that if the president of baseball operations leaves, there's a very good reason for that. It's probably for a reason.
Willow Rivera says, I can't believe you wouldn't. Will Rivera says, I can't believe you wouldn't trade 3 picks, 2 Knicks pick lottery protected, 1 Mavs first round. Randall is on his last year. Rivers is only 1 year. And Robinson is the only real piece for Harden. That's a great trade.
I don't
but
think
again,
so. No, I don't think so.
Dude, again, we've done this movie before, though.
Yeah.
Here's my problem. James Harden gets us to the playoffs. Does James Harden really get us to the finals? No. You still have to deal with Milwaukee and Giannis, who's still up there. You still have to deal with the Heat. You still have to deal with the Celtics. Yeah, it makes the Knicks watchable on TV, and it makes the Knicks, like maybe a 45-win team. But at the same time, dude, I don't know, man. I'm just my problem is that I've seen this movie before, and I'm tired of the Knicks just being relevant. I'm tired of just being playoff relevant. I want the Knicks name to be in championship relevant. I'm willing to take a couple of years for us to get from we suck to, okay, let's talk about them, to playoff relevant, to now championship relevant. Just look at the Miami Heat. Miami Heat is a prime example of that. They were championship relevant, the big 3 for the most part lead. Now they suck, and they've made little moves here and there to them making it all the way to the finals.
Yeah.
So I don't really want I want the New York Knicks to kind of just stay the course. Like, you're going to trade all of these future assets for James Harden, who, oh, by the way, has never sniffed the finals. Not even a sniff.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well,
so why do I want to trade all these future assets for me to bring in a guy that's just going to average 40 points a game? The Knicks are going to win 50 games, and then we're continuously getting ousted by Boston, by Miami, by Milwaukee. What's the point? Or, and in this case, for what it's worth, the Brooklyn Nets as well.
Yeah.
I really don't want to do that.
Yeah, the window for winning is what makes that trade not make sense. It's not a value thing. Like, he keeps harping on the value of the trade. First of all, I'm not sure that gets it done for Houston. Like, I'm not sure Houston's like, yeah, take James Harden. We'll take Mitch Robinson and a bunch of garbage after that. No, because Julius Randle does them. I mean, let me just ask you, because you're a Knicks fan, and I'm just saying this from an outsider perspective. I'm not trying to sneak this here. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that if you trade for Harden, you make the playoffs. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
You just gave up your best center. You gave up your starting power forward. You gave up any semblance of a, I know he's saying lottery protected picks. Why would they take lottery protected picks when that's the only value that they have in that trade other than Mitch Robinson? So it makes little to no sense, not because of the value alone, but because the window to win is not there. If we're talking next year and the Knicks make a huge step forward and they, say, for example, are fighting for the 8 seed at the end of the season and are in a really tough battle and we're very close but maybe missed the playoffs, then you're like, okay, you know what? Our window's starting to open up a little bit. Maybe we can crack this window open just a little bit more with the trade like this. But for now, you're not really doing much, bro. You're basically trading for James Harden for the PR. Oh, New York,
exactly. The
here
shock value.
The savior of New York. That's not happening, bro.
Thank you. We did this once before with Carmelo. We were as good as a second-round exit. That is the best we were.
Yeah. And the East was pretty strong back then, but you have to take in consideration right now. There's a lot of teams like I imagine that the reason why he is so gung ho on that trade is probably because he's thinking, okay, the East is wide open. We could sneak into the playoffs and da da da. But honestly, bro, after looking around, and maybe we'll do some more digging in the next couple of weeks, I don't think the East is as open as we'd like to make it seem.
I'm with you on that.
I'm starting to see some teams develop at the top of the league, at the top of the East rather, that I'm like, I don't know. I was thinking the Bulls had a chance at the 7-8 seed this year. Now I'm looking around, I'm thinking the Hawks are going to be right there. Boston, obviously, Miami, Milwaukee, Indiana. And that's just off the top of my head. Brooklyn, we haven't even mentioned Brooklyn. You're gonna see a lot of progress out of some of the teams that maybe, Orlando we talked about. They are a vastly improved team. There's a lot younger, better, more upside teams in the East than we gave them credit for. I just don't think it's a foregone conclusion anymore that you're going to be competing if you trade for a guy like James Harden.
Thank you. And maybe that's what I'm trying to say without saying it. You said it for me. If let's say we go into this season and we're 41-40, and we hit the 8th spot, and you're like, and like you said, man, we're up and coming now. We just need that one piece that can really get us now from 8 to maybe 3, and then if we hit that 3, now we can be more of an attractive free agent spot than
exactly.
Brooklyn. Then yes, you make that deal. You can't just make it now. It doesn't make sense for us now because you're asking, dude. Don't get me wrong. I'm a huge advocate of trading first-round draft picks just for the simple fact that sometimes when you're a team that's a championship team, you can get away with doing that because you're not going to get a chance at the generational talent that's coming out anyway.
Right.
You're in the mood of winning championships. The first-round picks don't mean anything. So basically, you're trading for a guy that's already developed for a maybe. But in the Knicks case, they're not there yet. So let's let the season, because it's not, let's stop acting like, again, like James Harden is, he's still going to be with Houston. No matter how you look at it. I mean, it's not like he's a free agent next year or whatever the case may be.
Right.
I'm just not ready to make another Carmelo-like deal for us to be as good as a second-round exit. I'm not. And the real reason why the Knicks were even in that second-round exit that year was because that's the year that Derrick Rose sat out when he tore his ACL the previous year in the
Eastern Conference.
It wasn't the ACL tear. I think it was the It was when he tore the meniscus against Portland.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So when he tore his meniscus against Portland, that opened up the East, and everyone was like, oh, this is the year that the Knicks are going to, this is that window. They got to do it now. And then we lose in 6 games to the Pacers, who we were a better team than that team was.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. I'm not ready to make that deal yet unless, like you said, we're either at the 9th spot and just miss the playoffs, or in the 8th spot, we make the playoffs, maybe get whooped by Milwaukee, and then you're like, you know what? It sucks we just got whooped by Milwaukee, but there's the growth. Now let's make this deal. Now let's see what we got. Now let's see if Harden makes sense for us, or do we just sign a free agent that could, put us over the edge? But Robinson and Julius Randle can go because we got Obi.
Sure.
I think Obi's going to be really good.
Yeah.
But I think trading Mitchell Robinson is a mistake.
And you're not gonna flip Austin Rivers 5 days after you signed him. That's another thing is you have to make these trades work in the NBA. Like you have to make the money work. You have to make the salaries going back and forth. It's gonna be tough, dude. Plus, again, you have to find where your window is. And if your window, I thought one of the big mistakes Milwaukee made, dude, like. They sold, first of all, Giannis gave them one name over the offseason, Bogdanović. They go out and they try and trade for him, and they flub it to the point where they lose out on the trade. Next thing you know, Atlanta gets him, they get better, and then you sell the farm for Drew Holiday, who, I'm sorry, is not an elite player. He's not a guy that is going to be like the Pippen to Giannis's Jordan. So you have to be careful with trading picks as well. Like the Bucks, they're probably not thinking too much about the picks that they traded because, like you mentioned, they're going to be in the low 20s at the very worst. But the Knicks, you actually can get stuff out of that. Like you can build pieces with those picks, lottery protected or not. If the Knicks, let's say, for example, have a bad year this year, they can still go out and draft well next year. And they'll have the Mavs and their own pick next year. So
right.
It's important to understand that the window is as big in trade value as the value of the players themselves.
Exactly. Once again, it's just It's the Knicks. It's Madison Square Garden. It's the prestige of the Knicks.
Right. It feels sexy.
Man,
it feels sexy.
New York basketball can come back.
Yeah.
You said what?
I said it feels sexy. It feels sexy to be like,
exactly.
We got James Harden, you know?
Exactly. Like, hell, goddamn right. Who in the East is going to stop James Harden? This man might drop 50 in the East. Yak.
Yep.
And then we're just a second-round playoff games. Yeah. I don't want to do that.
No, nobody needs that.
I cannot stress enough.
Nobody needs that. All right, let's talk some football, man.
Let's do it.
Oh man, it was a tough week for both of us last week.
Yeah.
Obviously we talked about the Bears on the Packers on Sunday night previously, and then it was a tough game. Let's be honest. It was a tough game for the Bucs. We talked about it in the preview last week. The Chiefs are a very good team. I honestly, if I were you, I'd be more encouraged by that loss than pretty much any loss that you've had this season, right? Because, the scoreline didn't look too bad. The team was in it. I thought Brady and the offense looked better in the second half. I thought I have a lot more to cry about than you guys do this week.
Here's the thing, though. What's going to drive me nuts? Now the Bucs find themselves in a very decent position because they're still 7-5.
Mm-hmm.
With the Bears kind of falling off a little bit,
mm-hmm.
It's kind of giving them a little bit of space because remember the Bears do still own the tiebreaker over us, but they're going into this week at 5-6. We're 7-5 going into our bye week, and then our next 4 games are against Minnesota. I think it goes Minnesota, Atlanta, Detroit, Atlanta. So, with that being said, for me as a fan, I see 4 wins. Could be potentially 3 wins. I think 10 wins does get you in the playoffs in the NFC. But what drove me nuts is why did it take 2 full quarters? Nah, let me take that back. It took Tyreek Hill to have 9 catches for 203 yards and 2 touchdowns for you to finally figure out, hey, maybe Carlton Davis, as many defensive backs really haven't been able to do this year, defend Tyreek Hill by himself. So here's a great idea. How about we zone him and have a safety up top so Patrick Jesus Mahomes isn't throwing wide open passes to this man?
Yeah.
And, oh, my God, dude, it was driving me nuts. And I was listening to this game on the radio, and all they were talking about – first, actually, I watched the first quarter on the Yahoo Sports app because I was DoorDashing.
Oh, that's got to be tough for you, man. Watching that Tyreek Hill I said that had to have been tough to watch on the Yahoo app.
And not even so much that, dude. To just listen to Jim Nantz and Tony Romo just blow Tyreek Hill the entire first flipping quarter. I was like, piss off on this. I'm going to go listen on the radio, listen to Gene Dickerhoff. And Tampa Bay, here's where Tampa Bay shot themselves in the foot. They really shot themselves in the foot in the beginning of the third quarter when you march all the way down the field and you only get a field goal out of it. That should have been touchdown or bust. And the one thing that's killing me with Tampa, and I thought that one of the best points that was made the other day, where I don't understand what this lack of I understand what it is. The Buccaneers right now offensively are too starstruck.
Yeah.
Okay. When you have Ronald Jones, who going into this game was the 5th best rusher in the entire NFL, here might be a small genius of an idea.
Yeah.
Run the goddamn ball.
Yep.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the problem is because Bruce Arians has this no risk it, no biscuit type of offense where it's all about passing the ball. And then you get starstruck because it's Tom Brady, and we all know what Tom Brady's done in his career, but for some reason Tampa Bay keeps forgetting this is a 43-year-old Tom Brady.
Yeah.
This isn't the 33-year-old still in my prime. I got plenty to tank Tom Brady. Okay? you're asking him to be in an offense where notoriously the quarterback doesn't do well to the second year of the offense, especially in this situation where the NFL didn't have a preseason. So try to explain to me why when Ronald Jones he did two things in that game and they totally went away from it. At one point in the game, Ronald Jones had this 30-yard run. I think he got called back for holding. But you give him a 30-yard run, gets called back for holding, you didn't run the ball for the next 8 plays. Why?
Yeah, it's
Over
tough,
one
man.
holding call that wasn't his fault.
Yeah.
Okay? Then in the middle of the third quarter, Ronald Jones sneaks out in the flat. The man's wide open and 5 yards down the field. This man is in full sprint, and he makes a 30-yard touchdown catch. You never went back to him again after that. Why? Because you're too starstruck on Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Tom Brady, when he was at his best, was when he had a dual threat running game.
Yep.
When he had Corey Dillon and Lawrence Maroney for many of those years. They have that in Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette. If we use Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette, it has to stop. At some point, Colin Cowherd came out and said that if the Bucs wanted any success, they would have to fire Bruce Arians. I think there's some validity to that, because the problem is that Bruce's ego right now is so flipping high that him and Byron Leftwich won't make adjustments. It's like Tom Brady has to open his mouth and say, hey, how about we run the goddamn ball when we have the 5th best rusher in the league?
Yeah.
And it's not like the Kansas City Chiefs run defense is better than ours. We're the best run defense in the league. We proved it again on Sunday. It's just that, excuse me, Patrick Mahomes threw for 452 goddamn yards.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So that's really my main issue. Todd Bowles needs to make an adjustment maybe after the first 75-yard touchdown catch. That would have been nice. But how about we run the ball and stop trying to make Tom Brady come out here and look like Tom Brady in New England? This is not the same Tom Brady.
And honestly, Tom Brady in New England didn't have to worry about play calling. Like, that's a huge thing. You have to take that into consideration. That Tom Brady never had to look back at the play call and go, what the hell are we running? Because he understood that there was always going to be somebody who understood the ebbs and flows of the games, the adjustments that need to be made. And I'll be honest with you, I said it last week. There was 2 things that I thought the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would fall short on: making those adjustments in game and big plays. And we saw it that both of those killed the Buccaneers because they were in it. I mean, listen, 17-0 after the first quarter, you're expecting it's going to be a 40-something, point thrashing. The defense, we've mentioned, is very good in the front 7, can really do some things in the front 7. The problem is they don't do much favors to their back 4 with the play calling, and it just makes it really tough. Like, I don't care who you have. You put anyone out there on an island with Tyreek Hill, they're going to get beat. They are going to get beat. So, and you mentioned it with the big plays, when you have a guy like Travis Kelce who can also stretch the middle of the field, it makes your linebackers have to do more. And especially with a defense like the Buccaneers, if you are consistently making it hard for Levante David and Devin White, you are going to be able to find the creases in this defense eventually. And that's one thing that I think the Buccaneers should have done a little bit earlier, which was dial up some more pressure, try and find some more pressure. Artificially, if you have to blitz, go ahead. Maybe switch some things up and bring some guys from the secondary. Stuff like that, because the real big thing with Patrick Mahomes is he's like reading you as the game goes along. Like, he's looking at you, okay, they did this in the first quarter, so in the second quarter I'm going to do this. And again, I think that's an NFL loss, Nick. That is not we just got whomped, we're the worst, oh my God, our team sucks. No, that is 2 good NFL teams and the better NFL team won. And if I'm a Bucs fan, I'm not really too mad about what happened. Listen, I'll be mad about how it happened. I'm not mad about the loss, though. I think, you have to sort of give credit where credit is due for those last 2 quarters, that they did what they did, weren't able to put themselves in the position. One thing that I was really surprised about is I thought the clock management was really poor for Arians late in the game. Yeah, I just think that, when you have, I think it was something like 3 minutes left and he was calling one of his timeouts with like 3 minutes left already, that does you no good as a defense. When the offense comes out and runs one play and then you call a timeout, that doesn't really do much for you, So clock management has a lot to do with it, and there's never been a better time for a bye week for you guys than right now.
Oh, I know, dude. Like I said last week, why we're waiting until week 13 for certain teams to have a bye week is an absolute flipping joke.
Yeah.
All bye weeks should be at least done by Thanksgiving.
I think so,
You know
too.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, the NFL still think it's okay for us to have these, redunculous flipping week 13 bye weeks. But here we are, and I'm with you, dude. And the funny thing is, it's not like the Bucs are getting blown out by these teams. Like we only lost 3 to the Rams the week prior. Mm-hmm. We lose by 3 to the Chiefs now, and this is for. You have to remember, a lot of these Buccaneers players have never been in this situation before.
Yeah, it's a newly winning team.
Right. The never-ending argument when it comes to Bucs fans is the whole, we should have kept Jameis. His name still pops up for some unbeknownst to me reason.
Yeah.
And what kills me is that one of my really good friends was like, when's the last time Jameis Winston was 7-5? Well, if you would have done some research in 2016, you must forget that the Bucs went into a bye week 3-5, played the Bears, and they went. They went.
They beat the Bears before the bye, right?
Come out against the Bears, beat the Bears at home, and they won a 5-game win streak.
Yeah.
And the Bucs would have went into the playoffs had flipping DeMar Dotson not learned how to block DeMarcus Lawrence in the last 3 minutes of that game, and not had Jameis getting sacked twice in that game, because Jameis was doing just fine before DeMar Dotson had a brain lapse on how to block. So when the Bucs can run the ball, they have success. But that's been the problem with the Buccaneers over the last handful of years. We have not been able to successfully run the ball through a 16-game season. And we've had games, and a lot of the games that the Bucs have been successful in, Ronald Jones against Green Bay, over 100 yards. Ronald Jones in the following game, who did we play? I want to say, I think it wasn't Carolina. It was somebody, off the top of my head, I can't think of who. He had 100 yards in that game. Let's not talk about the 192 that he put up against Carolina. Let's not talk about another 100-yard game he had. But all the games that we lose is when we're trying to have Tom Brady throw the ball 45 times for 500 touchdowns. I think Ronald Jones had a 100-yard game in a game against Oakland on the road. So that's what I'm saying. When we run the ball, we're okay. When we're trying to make Tom Brady become Superman, it's not happening. There has to be a balance. So this whole no risk it, no biscuit, how about we throw that out and run a more conventional offense that fits the team?
Yeah. And also, we mentioned it last week, I don't want to beat it to death, but if you only gain 2 yards on the run on first down, that doesn't mean you stop running the ball.
Exactly.
No defense is going to respect this Bucs team until they come out and have a 12-play drive where they run it 10 times. Like, that is going to be what it takes, and it seems like right now, I don't know if Leftwich is maybe trying to play to the strengths of the offense, but to me, when you look at it, you have 2 running backs who I think are being misused right now. I really do. I think that I'm glad you mentioned the fact that Ronald Jones was so limber and on his feet to be able, that was one of the most amazing plays I've seen all year. His tiptoeing, hurdling on the sideline to get that touchdown. That just shows that guy needs the ball in his hand however you have to do it. Whether you're turning around and sticking it in his gut, or if you're letting him run some out routes or letting him run, some quick drags. You need something out of that guy, and I know drops have hurt him and Fournette in the past, which has sort of prevented. Arians seems like the type of guy where it's like, all right, he dropped a pass, don't go back to him, and that can't be the mentality you have, especially with the team as talented as that.
Exactly. So, like you said, man, I'm just glad we're on the bike.
Yeah, no, definitely. It feels good. It feels good to watch other teams beat up on each other while your team is at home, watching and stuff like that. So, cool. Exactly. Well, my team is going to be beating up on themselves and on the Lions, hopefully, this week. Let's start with them. It's a little bit of a weird layout this week because of everything that happened with the Ravens and some of the reschedules early. There was no Thursday night game. So this week we will have a full slate on Sunday, including a couple of different 3:25 games or 3 o'clock games, and then we have 2 Monday night games and then 1 Tuesday night game as well. So we'll get through all of them. Let's start with the Bears and the Lions. The Bears are. Oh, by the way, how did we do last week?
Okay, hold on.
Should I let you tally that?
Nah, I already did.
Okay.
So pick 'em wise. You went 9-5. I went 7-7.
Okay.
But against the spread, you went 5-9, and I went a whopping 3-11.
Yeah, I'm not blaming us for that this week, honestly, Nick, because watching the games last week, the spreads have been so weird. Like, it's almost as if like Vegas is just on top of this right now. It's almost as if they know what they're doing in Vegas. So yeah, I'm not. I've never been one who's good on the spread.
Hey, real quick, Christian says Bears would win one more game the rest of this year. It is time to clean house with the Bears, starting with team president Ted Phillips, Ryan Pace, and Matt Nagy. He also went on to say that if you were the Bears, would you do a similar what the White Sox did 5 years ago by hitting the reset button, by trading your star players for draft picks and build it through there? Offensive lineman is a must fix.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll start with that. I mean, those are two different sports, Christian. You can't compare what the White Sox did to what the Bears can do. Nobody's going to be trading draft picks for our star players right now. Like you have to be honest about what the market is looking like. Nobody's going to be trading you anything for Allen Robinson. Poor Allen Robinson, one of the best receivers in the league, is probably criminally underrated as far as his skill in the league, but nobody's going to be trading first-round picks for him. Khalil Mack at this point, it's not even worth trading him because you are too soon into his tenure. You can't do that. There's no comparison with what the Bears and the White Sox did. You can't do that. In terms of who's getting fired and who's not, the McCaskies are very stubborn. They love Ted Phillips, and Ted Phillips seems to be a guy that has naked pictures of Virginia McCaskey somewhere because he keeps doing shitty things and never gets fired. So I don't know what they have to do to get rid of that. I would anticipate that neither one gets fired. I'll be honest with you. I really don't expect it. They gave Matt Nagy full autonomy this year over his staff. They went out and hired him new assistants. They went out and fired a couple of guys for him, new scouts for him. I would anticipate that maybe Ryan Pace might be the guy that would go if anybody goes. But I disagree with the assessment that Christian made, that they're only going to win one more the rest of the season. I mean, we play the Lions, Texans, Vikings, Jaguars, and then the Packers. So I'm sorry, Christian. I don't agree with your assessment that we'll only win one. I really think that's part of the issue is we're not bad enough to lose those games. Like, we need to be bad enough to lose those games. I don't think we are. And that's one of my big things about the matchup this week. That will really determine the rest of the season this week because you're 5-6 going against the 4-7 Lions. And if you lose this one, you drop to 5-7. And again, you still have 3 winnable games on the slate in the next 3 weeks. So I don't think that I think the Bears are too good defensively to lose against the Jaguars. I think they'll have more than a shot against the Texans the way that their defense is so bad. And on top of that, I think the Vikings are just not very good. And I actually think that last game of the season with the Packers is a trap game for the Packers. I think the Packers will probably have already eliminated or clinched by then, and the Bears won't have much, or the Packers won't have much much to play for, and the Bears will have everything to play for, including pride. So, yeah, man, I just disagree that I think one of the main issues that I have with the team right now is that they're almost too good to be bad enough for us to be beneficiably bad. Like, you need to have a bad record to be able to get a first-round pick that's going to do anything. We're not going to be bad enough to draft a quarterback this year. We're not going to be bad enough that you're going to be able to see a top 3 pick. So at this point, I think the Bears are stuck between the rock and the hard place, as we've mentioned before on the show, because I just think that they've got winnable games the rest of the season. And I also think that them starting Mitch Trubisky is another huge thing, because I think Mitch has a lot to prove over the next 3-4 games. He's going to be fighting for his career over the next 3-4 games, and maybe auditioning for another team next year, including teams that he's playing. There's going to be teams like, the Vikings and the Jaguars who may be looking for backups or starting quarterbacks next year. So I don't know. I'm very pessimistic when it comes to the Bears. I don't anticipate they'll be something that, we're not going to get an optimistic result out of this year. If you're expecting that we're going to have a feel-good story at the end of the season, we're not. We're probably going to go 8-8. We're probably not going to be bad enough to get a good pick, and you're probably going to have to deal with Matt Nagy for another year next year. So I would set expectations very low. And by the way, the Bears are in salary cap hell next year. They have a lot of money that is going to be allocated to very little resources. So I have a hard time being optimistic about the future. And I agree with you, though. I think Ted Phillips does need to go. That will be something that I guess we'll have to see if George McCaskey and Virginia McCaskey are serious about moving forward here.
Right.
All right, let's talk about that Bears-Lions game, because the Bears are 3-point favorites at home against the Lions, who just fired Matt Patricia. This has all the makings of a game where the Bears should win and probably won't win. It's one of those where I think I said it with the Texans when they fired Bill O'Brien. I said it with who else? Oh, I said it with the Falcons when they fired Dan Quinn. When you fire a coach like that, that's been leading a team as bad as that, the next week, those players have something more to play for. So
right.
I will be anticipating that the Lions will be going very hard this week. They will be playing like a team that's fighting for a playoff spot when they're not. And I don't think this is going to be an easy game for the Bears by any stretch of the imagination. Right now you're coming off of 5? I think it's 5 losses in a row. And this would be 6 losses here in a row if that happens. So it's a very precarious position for the Bears. Mitch Trubisky will be starting the game. What I'll say is I do think the Bears are going to be competitive in this game, because the defense has always given us a shot. No matter how bad we've been, the defense always gives us an opportunity. I still think that the Bears are going to win the game, because, again, I think the defense is too good to lose in games like this, where they I know that especially after that first game against the Lions, where they were basically one DeAndre Swift catch away from beating the Bears in the first game of the season. I think the Bears are going to be playing with a little bit extra edge. I think this will be a very chippy game. You're going to see a lot of fights. You're going to be a lot of scuffles. You're going to see a lot of yelling and trash talking. But I like the Bears both on the pick'em and the points in this one. But I think the Lions are going to play it tough, and I will not be surprised if the Lions come out and beat us.
You just explained why I'm taking the Lions in this game.
Yeah.
Actually, there was 2 points you made that I agree why I think the Lions will win this game.
Mm-hmm.
The first one was the post-firing of the head coach.
Yeah.
I really feel I personally feel as if the Lions are coming out here to prove that, hey, the reason why we were bad because we weren't. Our coaching staff wasn't prepared.
Right.
The Lions played the Bears tough on the road,
mm-hmm.
let alone at home,
mm-hmm.
for whatever reason. And I don't want to say this is a trap game per se, but what I want to say is that this game actually means a lot to the Bears, maybe more than their record might indicate,
mm-hmm.
because it keeps them in that playoff hunt.
Yeah.
Keeps them around that 6th spot or that 7th spot or so. But I think the Lions come out super hard in this game. I think they come out firing. I think they notice that the Bears are on their heels. I think they don't want to give the Bears any kind of confidence. And offensively, last week, I was looking at some of the numbers from last week. I mean, the Bears, what's his name? David Montgomery had over 100 yards rushing. No shock, because the Green Bay Packers rushing defense is terrible.
Yeah.
Mitchell Trubisky had three touchdowns. Not shocked, because Green Bay's defense, in my opinion, is not that great.
Right.
So they were supposed to. Obviously, the Lions don't have the offense as Green Bay does, but they play the Bears tough. So I'm going to take the Lions plus the 3 on this one.
Yeah, that's fair. I think, especially after the first game that these two teams played against each other.
That was the second point, by the way.
Yeah,
that was the second
yeah. That was one of those things where you were expecting to see a huge discrepancy in talent, that the Bears had so much more talent, and it really wasn't clear there. I think the Lions, did a pretty good job, and I still think the one thing that worries me about the Lions is that they're not fully healthy. DeAndre Swift is doubtful for the game. They've got some offensive line issues. So, all right, let's hope. And by the way, there are multiple scenarios still on the table for the Bears to make the playoffs. So I don't want to sound like I'm like some sort of a hater, right? That like, oh, this team sucks. No, I said it, Nick. I hope you can vouch for me on this. I said it when the team was 5-1. I said it when the team was 4 and whatever. I don't care. I watch the team and I watch how they play, and they're just not playing at a level that's playoff or championship level.
You did say that they were the worst 5-1 team at the time in the NFL.
I stuck by that, and I think I might have said one of the worst 5-1 teams of all time, and I still stick by that because when you look at the grand scheme of things, the Bears should have been in a tremendous position after starting 5-1. The only way that you ruin that is a disastrous way that we've seen the last couple of weeks here. 5 straight losses and going for 6 here. I just think something's got to give, and I think Bears fans, this is kind of sad to say, are hoping for that collapse. I think they're hoping to see maybe losing the rest of the games this season, and maybe getting rid of everybody. I just don't think it's that easy. So, let's talk some NFC South. The only 2 NFC South teams that are not on the bye this week are facing each other, and it's the Falcons, who are hosting the New Orleans Saints. They just played each other 3 weeks or 2 weeks ago now.
2 weeks ago,
2 weeks ago, with the same sort of style of Taysom Hill running quarterback. We will see how that works out for them, I suppose, in the long run. The Falcons are still a little bit banged up with Julio Jones and Todd Gurley being banged up, but it was a tough sort of string of events for the Falcons early in the season. But last week, 43-6 against the Vegas Raiders at home. That was not something a lot of people expected. And again, they were shorthanded in that game. The Falcons were. So I think right now, speaking of trap games, I think this has the makings of a trap game, in my opinion. I think Atlanta at home right now, with New Orleans defense is a little bit reeling, over the last couple of weeks. They've done a tremendous job, giving up 3 points last week against the Denver Broncos, 9 points against the Falcons the week before. But I still think right now that the Falcons have a really good shot at this game. The New Orleans is a 3-point road favorite. I will actually take Atlanta on the points, but I think New Orleans ultimately ends up winning this game.
All right, so you're taking the Saints, or you're going to take ATL plus the 3.
Yeah.
I'm taking the Saints. I'm taking the Saints minus the 3. Unless the reason why the Falcons looked so bad in that first game because there was, quote unquote, no tape on Taysom Hill. 2 weeks later, I can't see them all of a sudden just figuring out how to stop this guy in this Saints offense. I think you got to give the Saints defense, as you did, so much credit in the world because, the strength has always been the offense, but it seems like every time Drew Brees gets hurt, everybody steps their game up just a little bit more.
Yep.
The defense steps their game up a little bit more. Last year when Drew Brees got hurt, Teddy Bridgewater went, what was it, like 5-0 as a starter for the Saints while he was gone? Why? Because Latavius Murray ran the ball a little bit harder. Alvin Kamara was open just a little bit more. Michael Thomas was open just a little bit more. So I feel like, I'm not saying addition by subtraction, but you're not the way that this Saints team is really built, you're not really losing that much production per se with Drew Brees bringing out. Technically, you're actually adding a little bit more production because Drew Brees doesn't have the strongest arm in the world. They don't really get down the field. Now with Taysom Hill and last year Teddy Bridgewater, who have obviously stronger arms, you can now go down the field, which almost makes the Saints even more dangerous than they are with Drew. So I don't see the Falcons really maybe figuring out this whole New Orleans offense. So I'll take the Saints -3.
Okay, all right. A really awesome AFC matchup. The 8-3 Cleveland Browns, 3 straight wins, and are going to Tennessee to face the 8-3 Tennessee Titans, who, anytime you sell Tennessee short a little bit, they come out and prove you wrong. You have a tough game against Indianapolis a couple weeks ago. Didn't look too great against Baltimore the following week, and then you and I think did you take the Titans last? I think you took the Titans last week, right?
No, I took the Colts.
Oh, you took the Colts? Okay, I think both of us took the Colts because we just saw that Tennessee's defense wasn't doing enough. The offense was getting a little bit stagnant. And next thing you know, they come out and they really embarrassed the Colts. I mean, it didn't look as bad on paper, but if you watch that game or follow that game, it was embarrassing. And Derrick Henry went off, and Ryan Tannehill did just enough. And right now, Tennessee's 5.5-point favorites at home against the Browns, who themselves have some injury problems on defense, but the Browns have been doing it behind the return of Nick Chubb, him and Kareem Hunt and Baker Mayfield just finding it's really been Jarvis Landry and the tight ends is really what it's been for Baker Mayfield, and it's made a big difference for him. Granted, it's been against the Jacksonville Jaguars last week and the Philadelphia Eagles, who might be the worst team in the league in my opinion. After we get to them, so we'll talk about them in a little bit. But who do you like in this game? Mayfield versus Tannehill at Tennessee.
Who did you take?
I didn't take anyone yet. I was gonna get your opinion because honestly, I'm on the fence about this one. I really, I looked at the weather forecast and it's apparently not going to be too bad weather-wise. So I don't anticipate it'll be like a fully running battle. But I'm having a hard time with this one because I really like the Cleveland defense a little bit more than Tennessee's defense, but I like Tennessee's offense a little bit more than Cleveland's offense.
That's respect right there. I'm gonna actually take the Titans in the win, but I'm gonna take the Browns plus the 5.5 because yes, Tennessee was impressive against the Colts. They kind of kept, had the Colts more or less on their heels, and Derrick Henry just went off. I'm not gonna count out the Browns. But, man, did the Browns look very pedestrian against the Jaguars last week?
Yeah, they let them in the game a couple different times.
Man, but yeah. Mike Glennon was out there slinging and keeping Jacksonville within the game.
Yeah.
But I'm not buying I can buy Tennessee winning because they're at home. But do I buy that they was as good as they looked last week? No, I think the Colts just looked bad. So, but I don't trust the Browns on the road. So I will take the Titans at home, but I think it's going to be a close game. So I'll take the Browns plus the 5.5.
Yeah, you know what? You just reminded me about how bad Phillip Rivers looked last week in some instances. And now I'm starting to realize that I think that had a lot to do with Tennessee because, I mean, if you look at it, they still gave up 26 to the team. In a 45-point offensive effort. I think Cleveland is able to get it done both on the points and the pick'em this week. I really think that it's going to be hard. I think the one thing about Baker Mayfield is he's got to stay away from turnovers. If he can stay away from turnovers, you can live with him not making a lot of plays. You can live with him missing some receivers often. You can even live with him, occasionally throwing it to the the other team. But the multiple turnovers, the multiple sacks, the multiple negative plays, that's what really kills them in the end. I think if they could stay away from that, I think I like Cleveland in this one. So I'll take them on both the points and the pick 'em there. I don't know how much time you want to take on this one. Miami's 7-4. Cincinnati's 2-8-1. They're missing their best player. Miami's a 10.5-point favorite. I will go ahead and take Miami with the points and the pick 'em.
You said 10.5.
10.5
minus
home favorites. Yep.
You can go ahead and go to the next game. I'm already putting Dolphins minus 10.5.
Okay, cool. This one isn't much of a gritty matchup either, Nick. It's the 1-10 Jacksonville Jaguars who finally, I don't know how Doug Marrone still has a job, but he still has a job right now. And they are going to Minnesota. Minnesota, we talked about them last week, up and down, up and down, up and down. After a couple of really nice wins, they lose to the Dallas Cowboys. We both expect them to go against Carolina and lose that one. They come back at the last second because Carolina's defense kept them in it. They scored 2 defensive touchdowns in back-to-back plays last week, which basically brought them back. Carolina's offense without Christian McCaffrey isn't there right now. I think they overperformed a little bit earlier in the season with Teddy Bridgewater and Mike Davis and some of those guys. But I'm going to go ahead and take. I'm going to go ahead and take Minnesota in this game. They're 10-point favorites at home. One thing I would be worried about is the points there, especially the way that the Jaguars played the Browns last week. I would anticipate it will be much of the same, but I will still take Minnesota both on the points and the pick 'em.
I'm going to take Minnesota in the game, but I'm going to take Jacksonville plus 10.
10.5 is a lot for a team like Minnesota who can barely, pull up their pants correctly.
That's point A, but then point B, either the Browns defense really sucks or my prophecies on Mike Glennon
isn't so bad, yeah.
than I thought they were. Because I'm saying, man, I really don't think Mike Glennon is that bad of a quarterback.
He made nice
throws. He has to be the one quarterback that has been in the worst situations ever. You get drafted by Tampa Bay. They ceremoniously get rid of Josh Freeman so you can start because Shiano loved you since you were in college. And then then they go
Jameis.
1 and whatever to where they draft Jameis Winston. Then you just become a backup and an afterthought. Then you go to Chicago. They still struggle with the same offensive line issues then as they are now. You have no time in the pocket, so they get rid of you then. Then you go to Oakland, and now you're stuck behind Nathan Peterman and Derek Carr. And what's his name loves him. John Gruden loves him, but he's stuck behind those two. And now you're in Jacksonville, and you're stuck behind Gardner Minshew, the second, whatever he is. And I still think that Gardner Minshew being the starter of the Jacksonville Jaguars is a joke. So to see Mike Glennon come out and keep Jacksonville in the game, I think is a testament of how good I think. I'm not saying he's great, but I don't think Mike Glennon is 100% garbage.
No.
And at the same time, though, I have to also put an account on how not good Minnesota has looked over the last couple of weeks. Like you said, it took 2 defensive touchdowns for Carolina to come back in the game they didn't deserve to even be in. And then the week prior, you lose to Dallas at home. That's even a bigger joke. Yeah. So with Minnesota, like I said, I think they'll win, but I think Glennon keeps them in the game.
Yep, that's fair. And by the way, Glennon, he made some really nice throws in that game, and I think he was missing the top 2 receivers. I think Shark and Conley were out, and he did it with like rookie Colin Johnson, Laviska Shenault. He made a couple of really nice throws. I was really impressed with some of the throws he made in particular. So don't blame me for that pick at all. I have a pretty quick one for you here. It's the Las Vegas Raiders are 6-5, coming off of an embarrassing loss on the road to the Atlanta Falcons. They go back on the road to Jersey to face the 0-11 Adam Gases. That's what I'm going to call him from now on. Until they fire him, I'm going to call him the New York Adam Gases. 7.5 point favorites on the road are Vegas. I will take Vegas both on the pick'em and the points. I think this is finally the week that gets Adam Gase fired.
I'm gonna take the Raiders in the win.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually gonna take the Jets plus the 7.5.
Oh wow!
Because boy, the Raiders look like total ass on Sunday on the road.
Yeah, they did.
They did not look good, dude. There's actually people who are saying that they think this is the week the Jets get their first win.
Wow.
If they do, how embarrassing would that be? I don't think that's gonna happen. But man, I can't get out of my head how bad they were last week.
That
was
really bad.
Every team is due a bad game, but with the Raiders, for as much momentum as they had coming into last week and really playing the Kansas City Chiefs hard the week prior, for you to come out on the road and only score, 6 points in Atlanta?
And give up 40
plus.
Cut it, so. Yeah, give up 40 plus too. Yeah. And no Josh Jacobs this week too.
Yep. So that's why I'm saying I'm going to take the Raiders.
Okay.
But I'm going to take the Jets plus the points. I wouldn't be shocked if the Jets found a way to upset Las Vegas.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. AFC South matchup. Indianapolis 7-4 going to Houston, who is 4-7. Houston, fresh off of that Thanksgiving Day win that got Matt Patricia fired. Indianapolis 7-4, fresh off of that really tough loss to Tennessee last week, that could have really put them ahead and really given them a nice cushion for playoff chances. They're still in a very good position, still have a very good defense, but missing DeForest Buckner this week, no Anthony Costanzo this week, and it looks like right now David Johnson's going to be back for Houston, so kind of two teams taking a little bit of opposite sides of the spectrum as far as health is concerned. Indianapolis is only a 3-point favorite on the road right now. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I like Houston in this one. I think the Deshaun Watson thing, ever since Bill O'Brien has left, has worked a lot better. And I don't think that's any coincidence that once you subtract a guy like Bill O'Brien, your best player gets better. It's hard for me not to say that guy was a problem all along. So I also, again, DeForest Buckner, we've talked about him before on the show. He's such a catalyst for that defense. Not having him and then not having your blindside blocker for Phillip Rivers, who just came off of a really tough game against the Titans. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I like Houston on the points and the pick'em. I really don't even think that this, if I'm right on the points, then there's no way I'm going to be wrong on the pick'em. So I really don't see this any other way other than Houston fighting really tough, and I don't see a blowout coming for Indianapolis. So I like Houston.
I like the Colts in this one. I know they were both on the opposite sides of the coin, but Houston, I know Detroit under Matt Patricia wasn't that good.
Yeah.
I think Houston took advantage of it. I don't think the Colts were as bad as they looked against Tennessee.
Yeah.
They made some mistakes defensively, like you said. DeForest Buckner not being there defensively. You saw what Derrick Henry was able to do on him.
Yep.
But I still this team, the Texans just aren't structured well. I do agree with they've been better since Bill O'Brien got fired. But the Colts I think the Colts know what's on the line here, especially with Tennessee kind of being right above them. So I like the Colts on the road in this one, minus the 3.
Okay. All right, and NFC West, what has turned out to be, I don't know, would you say they're the best division in football right now? When you've got Seattle. The one problem with that is that you've got who am I missing? So obviously you've got the Rams and Arizona with Seattle. You got the 49ers who have underperformed a little bit. But man, the Rams have.
But they're banged up though.
True. And if they were healthy, with Kittle and Garoppolo and everybody on defense, man. And I know Arizona has sort of taken a couple steps back. They're not the team that I think we all thought they could be, which is this super dynamic run. Oh my God, the air raid offense. Listen, every once in a while somebody comes back into the league, tries the air raid offense or tries something crazy offensively. It works for a short amount of time and then it kind of fades away. I'm not saying that's going to be the case for Arizona, but Arizona's got to be careful right now because there's definitely been a lot of chinks in their armor over the last couple of weeks, especially that New England game. they had no business losing that game. New England's clearly not the team to lose to at that point. The Seattle game that they lost, and then I go back to that Miami game they lost a couple weeks ago too. So even with the impressive win against Seattle a couple weeks ago, impressive win against Buffalo, I have a hard time right now with the Cardinals because honestly, I've been super impressed with the Rams, dude. Like I don't know. I don't know exactly what my expectations were before the season. I knew that the team was going to be competitive, but I really didn't see that this team had the defensive assets. I thought it was only Jalen Ramsey and only Aaron Donald, and everybody else was just going to kind of fall to the wayside. And I've been proven extremely wrong in terms of that. I mean, that's a really tough loss last week against the San Francisco 49ers. I will give it to you, but I've still been really impressed with what they've done. They need to find an identity offensively. That's, I think, the biggest part. Like, not having Todd Gurley, listen, say what you want Todd Gurley about injuries and everything like that, but not having a go-to running back has really killed them. Malcolm Brown's not a number one. Dale Henderson's not a one. Cam Akers is not a one. So when you have to constantly go to Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods and your tight ends and and now they have no Andrew Whitworth, it's just going to be tough. But the defense, the pass defense of the Rams is top notch. Really, really good. Shutdown corner, one of the best in the league in Jalen Ramsey. And then Aaron Donald is just a complete wrecking ball. And I don't think Arizona runs the ball enough for my liking. So the Rams, by the way, are 2.5-point favorites on the road, which is kind of surprising. That's probably one that's going to be making people scratch their heads because I know Arizona's coming off of 2 tough losses, but they're at home and it is a big game for Arizona because this puts them above the Rams if they can win. So I'm surprised Vegas has it 2.5-point favorites are the Rams, but I'll take the Rams in this game, both on the points and the pick'em. I've lost a little bit of confidence in Arizona, and especially in their defense. I just don't see them being able to grit it out against this Jared Goff-led offense.
Yeah, you hit a lot of great points, and I think my favorite point that you made was the defense, and especially now that there's another pass rusher. Actually, another couple of pass rushes that the Rams have that is not named Aaron Donald.
Yep.
The resurgence of Leonard Floyd.
Yeah.
Remember, I was on record of thinking that when Leonard Floyd came to Chicago, that he was more of a Derrick Brooks type of linebacker,
sure,
like that guy that can make tackles and is good in coverage. Not so much a sack guy. You could blitz him here and there, but he's not that much of a sack guy or a rush to quarterback guy like a Khalil Mack, like a Shaq Barrett, like a Von Miller or Bradley Chubb or Myles Garrett or some of the elite 3-4 pass rushers. But he's gone to Los Angeles, and the Rams found something out in him that the Bears couldn't find out in him. And I think having Leonard Floyd, having Aaron Donald helps that a lot because there's so much focus on him. Because, obviously many people think that he's the best defensive player, if not the best player in the NFL going right now. So I like the Rams in this minus the 2.5 as well. I think defensively they could get the Cardinals fits, and I'm with you. The Cardinals really don't run the ball that much. And the Rams actually, I didn't get a chance to see the game last week, but I know that the Rams, for a fact, have one of those defenses where they've only given up like maybe 1 or 2 touchdowns in the second half all year. One of those was against Tampa, and I think they gave up another one against against San Francisco. But prior to those two, they were almost damn near money in the bank. So basically, if they were losing at halftime, their offense had to show up, or they were losing the game. So, the Rams seem to be really getting better at finding their identity. So I like the Rams minus 2.5.
Okay, yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned Leonard Floyd because they're playing him in the exact spot that I think you had talked about, which is like a hybrid role. Like half the downs he's standing up and in coverage, and the other half of the downs he's stunting, doing something on the edge. Like the problem with the Bears was that they wanted him to be a pure speed pass rusher. They wanted him to come off of the edge and make a play on the ball. He's not that guy, and the Rams just said, you know what? And by the way, the Bears went out and spent big on Robert Quinn, and good luck with that if you're a Bears fan, because he hasn't been I wouldn't even say he's been as good as Leonard Floyd was in that defense. So, I think that's a huge mention, is that Leonard Floyd has taken that step up, and then Samson Ebukam is another big guy for them, who can, to have two pass rushers on the side and then Aaron Donald in the middle. That's a dangerous defense with a number one shutdown corner as well.
And you know what else too? I'm glad you mentioned that, because Robert Quinn's best years when they were the St. Louis Rams was when they were in the 4-3. Like, dude, you'll be shocked and amazed how many edge rushers do so much better in a 4-3 than they do a 3-4.
Yeah.
Two names that come off the top of my head both played for Houston. One's Jadeveon Clowney, the other one's Mario Williams. When Mario Williams was in the 4-3, he was a monster. Romeo Crennel came in, made him a 3-4. He wasn't as effective. He goes to Buffalo under Jim Schwartz, and the man drops another 15-sack season. Jadeveon Clowney was the same way. Here's a guy who in South Carolina was a beast at the 4-3. He's in the 3-4. He's okay at best, made some plays here and there, but when he gets traded to Seattle, who runs a 4-3, he was a monster. Yeah. And then he let that little piece of success get to his head and think he was worth $20 million. And it's the same with Robert Quinn. When Robert Quinn was with the St. Louis Rams in the 4-3, he actually was a monster for them. And then all of a sudden he goes to these 3-4 defenses. He's not a linebacker. He's not a speed rusher linebacker. This has to be a guy who's, a down linebacker who uses his speed, off the edge, with his hand down. Yeah, that's it. So that's why he's not succeeding as much in his defense, because maybe he's out of position.
Yeah, no, you're right. And remember, he had a tough. After he left the Rams, he had a tough couple seasons with the Dolphins, and then last year he showed up with the Cowboys, who run a pure 4-3, opposite side of DeMarcus Lawrence, and he has a career type of year, and the Bears are banking on him to do the same with Khalil Mack on the other side, and it's just not the same, because first of all, he has to come off the field for a lot of plays. That's the thing that really bothers me, dude. You're paying this guy $15+ million a year, and he only plays half the plays the defense runs. That's not what you want out of a guy. So, yeah, that's a great point on Robert Quinn, and just goes to show you that teams really have to do their homework when it comes to draft players, because talent isn't all of it, right? Leonard Floyd had great talent coming out of Georgia, but the Bears overdrafted him. We know that now. They overdrafted him. They thought he was going to be something he wasn't. They thought he was going to be a nice little addition to the team, and it turns out that now he's doing really well for someone else, which sucks.
Right.
All right, more NFC West. The Seattle Seahawks, they are 10.5-point favorites against the 4-7 New York Giants. I feel bad for the New York Giants because they're right in the thick of things, and they lose Daniel Jones to an unfortunate injury. He is doubtful for this game. It's going to be Colt McCoy. Oh, my goodness. I don't know how Colt McCoy's still in the league, but all right. 10.5 favorites are Seattle at home. I'm going to take Seattle. If Daniel Jones was going in this one, I might have given the Giants the chance to get to the points, which is 10.5 is pretty heavy. But I just can't see Seattle flubbing this game at home.
We're in the same mindset.
Okay.
If I actually started writing down that I totally forgot Daniel Jones got hurt. I was actually going to pick the Giants on the upset because I think they're really playing some really good football as of late. But with Daniel Jones being down and Colt McCoy, who hasn't been effective in I don't know how many years, to go on the road against the Seahawks, who are 5-0 at home, I just don't see it happening. So I'm with you. I'm taking the Seahawks minus the 10.5.
All right, cool. That was one of the 4 3 o'clock games. Another one of the 3 o'clock games is, I'm going to go ahead and say, the worst team in the league, the 3-7-1 Philadelphia Eagles against the Packers. I think I said it on last week's show. Like, dude, Doug Peterson needs to go. I'm sorry. I just can't. I can't bear watch Carson Wentz give up another turnover, or watch this defense have to carry this team again and again and again. I'm being a little bit facetious when I say they're the worst team in the league, but when you have some of the performances that they've put up have been pitiful. I mean, 3 losses in a row. All 3 losses, basically, you scored 17 points in all 3 losses, and you've given up 23, 22, and 27 points. So, the defense for me when it comes to the Eagles is not the problem. Even though they have holes, they have their own problems. The problem is the offense. Carson Wentz is continuously, his leash just keeps getting longer and longer and longer, and it seems like it should be getting shorter to the point where he's choking on it right now. And it seems like Doug Peterson every week starts to sort of loosen the collar a little bit. Everything's fine. Oh, we're going to give Jalen Hurts a couple of plays this week. And then they bring him in for 1 play and then take him out. And then 1 play and take him out. I mean, this is just silly at this point. So as much as it pains me to say the Packers are rolling right now, even after that loss against India a couple of weeks ago in overtime due to the Marquez Valdez-Scantling fumble in overtime. I like the Packers here, who are, by the way, 9.5 point favorites at home. So I'll take them both on the picks and the points.
9.5. Packers negative. I'm taking Green Bay. And I'll say this too, man. The problem I have with Philly is, dude, what's the identity, bro?
Right. Like what do we do well?
Who are the Philadelphia Eagles?
Yeah.
So you got rid of Nelson Aguilar. He's having success in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
You brought back in Deshaun Jackson after everyone felt that Deshaun Jackson was a huge problem in Tampa. Him and Jameis never got along. This man can't even see the goddamn field here in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And then Carson Wentz right now, you lessen the wide receiver core, you up your tight end core. Zach Ertz can't stay healthy. Dallas Goedert's in and out. Your offensive line's in and out. Your running backs are in and out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like Carson is trying to work with what he's got. But, man, he hasn't really been the same since the injury a few years ago when they won the Super Bowl.
Yep.
So
that's true.
And then defensively, the Eagles have notoriously been good, but they've taken steps back this year. So, I think Green Bay is getting them at the right time. I like the Packers minus the 9.5, but I'm with you. I think at some point the Eagles are going to need a new head coach, a new voice, and a better steer of direction on where this team's supposed to go. Because right now I just feel like they don't even know where they're going. They're just going through the motions of the season.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. All right, let's talk the last 3 o'clock game. It's the Chargers, who are 3-8. They are coming off of a little bit of a tough loss against the Buffalo Bills, and even the week before. I mean, a lot of people thought they should have whomped the Jets, and they barely got squeaked by the Jets. I think it's officially time to say, thank you for your service, Anthony Lynn, but maybe it's time for a move here, because we talked about bad clock management with Bruce Arians and Matt Nagy. One of the worst clock managers in the league is Anthony Lynn. I mean, he has been terrible. He did it again last week against Buffalo, constantly, just really and I'm sorry, they look unprepared too. That is there's no excuse for a team to look that unprepared against a Buffalo team that's been struggling against other relatively good defenses. So New England is actually going to be going into LA to face the Chargers. Chargers 1.5 point favorites, so respect from Vegas there, because of I think Vegas is starting to notice what we're noticing, that New England isn't New England anymore, and that maybe they do have a lot of weaknesses. And you even saw it last week with the win against the Cardinals. There was a lot of chances for the Cardinals to go out and take that game, and they just didn't do it. So I actually like the Chargers in this game, surprisingly. I think this is going to be sort of a coming out party for Justin Herbert here, to sort of show that he's got the gall and the balls to go out there and beat teams that are better than him. I think we saw it like when he played you guys, when he played Tampa Bay, he was slinging the ball around. When he played Kansas City, slinging the ball around. He's showing that type of confidence. I think New Orleans, yeah. So I really like this matchup for him, even though the New England defense is relatively tough. I actually like the Chargers in this game, and I'll take them with the points as well as the pick'em.
Yeah, I like the Chargers minus the 1.5 too. But one thing that I think that has kind of killed the Chargers is that they really don't have a running game. Like Austin Eckler, God forbid knows whenever he's going to come back. Like 1 minute he's expected to play, now we're going to sit him out. Then the next week he's expected to play, now we're going to sit him out. The next week we're going to put him on IR. Then you go into this week, he might play, we're not sure. I think they made a mistake by letting what's his name go, Melvin Gordon. I think they made a mistake by letting Melvin Gordon go because first of all, Melvin Gordon going into Denver made no sense when you have Royce Freeman and Phillip Lindsay there.
Yeah.
So I don't know why Denver, another great John Elway move, why he still has his job in Denver, in my opinion, is a total 100% joke as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And I've been very vocal, and they're next on the list, but I've been very vocal about the absolute shit job that John Elway has done with the Broncos.
Yeah.
But I'm going to hold off on that rant because they're next on Sunday night.
Yeah.
But it's nothing against New England. I think New England is slowly but surely trying to find their identity and what they're going to be under Cam. But I really like Justin Herbert. I really like Justin Herbert out of when he was in Oregon.
Yeah.
I thought he would have been great in Tampa Bay with an arm like that on the no risk it, no biscuit tip. And but he's doing the damn thing in LA and much power to him. And also, man, big shout out to Tyrod Taylor, who basically said, look, it was a mistake.
Right.
I'm not going to file any grievance against LA. Stuff happens. It's unfortunate, but I'm not going to sue them anything. So I thought that was a class move by Tyrod Taylor. But yeah, I like the Chargers minus the 1 under that.
Yeah. And Tyrod Taylor is a class act. I agree with you. That was, listen, dude, I know he knows that seat was being kept warm for Justin Herbert, but that's got to be a gut-wrenching way to lose your job. Like, the team doctors doesn't do their job correctly. Next thing you know, you got a punctured lung, and now you have to, give up the reins within 2 weeks of the season. It's never easy. So, all right, let's talk about those Denver Broncos. As I'm walking out of this studio last week, we had just wrapped up the show, and I'm walking out of the studio, and I see a text on my phone that says, no Denver Bronco QB is eligible for tomorrow's game against, it was the Saints.
Saints.
Yeah. So, essentially, they had been around all of the QBs, Blake Bortles, Drew Lock, and I think there was a third guy as well. Rippin' Kid. All were around a high-risk COVID contact, none of them wearing masks. They say it was a brief slip of the moment where they didn't have masks on. Instead, the NFL basically, with the protocols, said neither of these guys are going to be eligible. And by the way, you can't sign anybody because with the new COVID protocols, you have to pass a certain amount of negative tests within a certain amount of days to even be eligible. So they elevated a wide receiver from the practice squad who previously played QB. As you can imagine, didn't go very well against New Orleans. It was one of the ugliest sort of performances you'll see from a team like that. But they do get Drew Lock back in the fold this week. But all they have to show for it now is a 10-1 Kansas City team who's beaming with confidence after beating a really good team in Tampa Bay, and they're 13.5-point favorites against the Broncos. That's the only thing that worries me about this game. I know Kansas City will win this game, but it does bother me a little bit that 13.5 points is kind of excessive for a team with as decent of a defense as Denver has. And by the way, Denver has 4 wins on the season, so it's not like the team has been terrible all season. They just had a lapse of judgment with the QB room last week. So yeah, I'll take Kansas City on the pick'em, but I think Denver finds a way to cover the points. I really do. I think 13.5 with a team like Kansas City, who's probably going to put it away early and just try and run time. I think it's safe to say that Kansas City wins the game, but I think Denver has something to play for with those points.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Chiefs minus the 13.5. But to continue on from my rant, literally from 5 minutes ago, Dude, at what point do the Denver Broncos brass grow a set of balls and just tell John Elway, hey, man,
go away.
You've done a great job for us as a player. You did a great thing by bringing in Peyton Manning. But if you want to talk about one of the worst president GM jobs since Peyton Manning left, and look no further than John Elway and the Denver Broncos. Dude, what a joke. So let me make sure we get speaking of Reddit streams that that we could put up about crappy GMs and presidents that hasn't done jack in years. Let's take a look at John Elway since Peyton Manning left. You flubbed the Brock Osweiler deal, and he left to go to Houston because, remember, Brock Osweiler was supposed to be the second man in command after Peyton Manning. Then you flubbed the Colin Kaepernick deal because you couldn't cough up an extra like $1.5 million, something stupid like that. Yeah. So you flubbed that deal. Then you drafted Paxton Lynch. And then you tried to sell the Denver fans that, Trevor Siemian be okay because he's been in this system underpaid, so he should know. You were mediocre under Trevor Siemian. Then Paxton Lynch didn't work out to a point to where you cut him almost, 1.5, 2 years later after you drafted him. Now you're with Drew Lock, Brett Rippon's nephew, a kid that what did you say? Blake Bortles. You flubbed Joe Flacco. Dude, this man is, name one thing that John Elway has done as Broncos president when you said, you know what, I think the Broncos are on the move. They're going to do great.
Other than basically, other than basically convincing Peyton Manning to take on that job, what has he done like player personnel wise? I have no idea. And by the way, he's had his choices, 5 quarterbacks now for the guy who's supposed to be a quarterback whisperer. How many more chances do you get?
Thank you. Exactly my point, dude. John Elway might be a great quarterback. He is not a president. He is only president of Denver by name and past player acolytes. This man is not John Lynch, who's been the general manager / president of the San Francisco 49ers, has done world wonders better for that team than John Elway's done in more years than with the Denver Broncos. Fire this idiot so you guys can wait. What did you do? You drafted Bradley Chubb. That's great. But then you signed Melvin Gordon III. For what?
For what?
When you had Philip Lindsay, who had a good season last year, and you had Royce Freeman, who was a decent backup, Melvin Gordon makes no sense on your team.
Yeah.
So, what was the point, dude? He has done the Denver Broncos a disservice, and John Elway needs to be fired.
And the worst part is they needed offensive linemen. You need offensive linemen. You need a secondary. You need a safety. And all he did was you know what? Our premier signing this year is going to be Melvin Gordon.
Yeah. Oh, and they're going down the Detroit Lions route, too. Oh, let's draft another tight end.
Right. Let's keep drafting tight ends until.
You really needed Noah Fant, bro?
Yeah.
Come on, dude.
Yeah.
The Denver Broncos are a joke. I want to like this team. I just can't do it under John Elway because he is not shown for 1 second that he knows what he's doing as GM of this team. He's garbage, dude.
This is what happens when you give former legends of the team the keys to run the team. The Colts love Peyton Manning, but they're not going to give him the keys to run the damn team again. Peyton Manning's a legend. John Elway is a legend. That doesn't mean that you have to keep him around to ruin your team even further. And by the way, it's not getting any easier for Denver anytime soon. They're not going to be bad enough to get a draft pick that's going to help them. So quarterback probably isn't coming anytime soon. You've got a big Von Miller contract next year that looks really big considering he missed the whole year this year, and you're paying him quarterback type money. On top of that, you paid Melvin Gordon, a running back who's in the wrong side of his career, more money for that. I mean, it's looking grim for Denver right now. Other than the wide receiver core and a young tight end, they're really looking pretty tough. And by the way, they just extended Garrett Bowles, who just so happens to be, I think, a bottom 30 offensive tackle in the league as well. So good luck with that.
Exactly. Great moves, John.
Great moves. Keep it up, buddy.
If I did a franchise mode and flipping Madden. I bet
Right,
I can
yeah.
make better moves.
Exactly.
This nigga.
Yeah,
Jesus,
yeah.
man.
We'll see what type of moves he has up his sleeve this year. You know, he'll try and resurrect Joe Flacco or something. Or you know what? He'll bring in Phillip Rivers and say, "I know Phillip Rivers, you probably got a half a leg and maybe a half an arm left, but why don't you come over here to Denver? We got thin air over here. Come on over." All right, let's talk Monday night. Because Monday night is looking pretty interesting. So Monday afternoon, actually, 4 o'clock to be exact, the Washington Redskins are going to go to Pittsburgh to try and defeat the undefeated
Football team.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me. Did I say Redskins? Yeah. Washington football team. Excuse me, guys. Going to Pittsburgh. 11-0 as Pittsburgh. They have a shot at the perfect season, man. It's crazy to say, but they have a shot at the perfect season at this point. But they have to get through Washington first, and Washington's got a pretty tough defense. Offensively, though, I just have a hard time getting behind this team, even though they just whomped the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. I think that'll give them confidence, but nothing more than confidence. Pittsburgh, man, I will say this. I was not impressed with what they did last week against the Ravens. I thought that should have been just easy, go in there, run the ball down their throat, do whatever you got to do to get out of there, and it was way too close for comfort. I did see a couple of analysts say that this is a team, if that team showed up against Kansas City, if that team showed up against some of the better teams in the AFC, including Buffalo, they would lose. We'll see. I guess we'll have to wait and see, but I still think Pittsburgh has enough to get it done in this game, even though I still think Washington is going to win the NFC East. I really, really genuinely think that the best team right now in the NFC East is Washington. I really do believe that. I think their defense is legit. They have a really good running back in Antonio Gibson, really good wide receiver in Terry McLaurin. They're missing a quarterback. Alex Smith is not going to be the guy that's going to get them to the promised land, but I still think that's going to be enough to get it done because the Cowboys' defense is terrible. That's not going to go away anytime soon. Philadelphia can't get anything done with Carson Wentz. And then, on top of that, you got the Giants, who I thought were going to be that team, but no Daniel Jones, and then the defense is starting to wane themselves. So I still like Pittsburgh, but I'm not sleeping on Washington whatsoever.
What do you got?
I'm taking Pittsburgh both on the points and the pick 'em. 7-point favorites are the Steelers at home.
All right, cool. Yeah, I got the Steelers minus the 7 too. I agree with you to the most part as far as the NFC East. I still like the Giants.
Yeah.
I'm still, dude. It so sucks that what's his name got hurt though, Daniel Jones, because he was really coming along. He was getting hit with the the turnover bug. Too.
Right.
But again, I think Daniel Jones is a kid who probably was drafted where people didn't think he should have been drafted.
Mm-hmm.
But the man has shown glimpses of between his legs and his arm. If he can get his head to match his legs and his arms, or his arms and his legs, I think Daniel Jones is going to be really good. It's just he's got to make some extra reads, because I thought that game a few weeks ago against Tampa Bay, he missed a lot of plays. I think a lot of it had to do with the pressure of Tampa, but if he can get his eyes done, dude, the Giants are going to be in good shape. But I like the Steelers in this. I'm still not so. I'm with you. I'm not so Washington offensively. I think defensively with Chase Young, this team's really good. But and the Steelers, I think if I'm not mistaken, are missing Bud Dupree.
Yeah, they'll be missing Bud Dupree for the rest of the year, more than likely, and they also have a couple of still sort of up in the air stuff on the offensive side of the ball, including running backs and also Ben Roethlisberger.
Yep. So, but I still like the Steelers though.
Okay. Yeah, and to your point with Washington and New York, I think they're both right there with each other. I think the loss of Daniel Jones, though, I think that really hurts the Giants. I mean, just imagine what this Giants team could have done with Saquon. Like, if they had Saquon and then they were able to get Daniel Jones healthy and the defense has stepped up, that would have been interesting. So we'll see how the NFC. All we know is a really bad team is going to have a home game in the NFC playoffs this year. From the NFC. I
think that's going to change next year.
I really hope so. Yeah, that's a travesty. Nick, we mentioned last week that one of the counties in California completely barred any sort of activities, including football activities, in California. That includes Santa Clara. That's just so happens to be the semi-new home of the 49ers. They had to make a deal with the Arizona Cardinals and not really with the Cardinals, just more so with the stadium to play their games in Arizona. So they will be playing in Arizona more than likely for the rest of the season at this point, it's looking like. So it'll be a home game in Arizona for the 49ers. You're not going to hear that very often against the 8-3 Buffalo Bills. San Francisco surprisingly a 1-point favorite. I think that has to do with how Buffalo has sort of looked up and down as of recently, but, still have lots of wins to show for it. I mean, again, you're not going to give them too much credit for beating the Jets. That New England game was a little bit too close for comfort. And then the Seattle game, I think a lot of people were saying that's a flash in the pan. The Seahawks were on the road. Russell Westbrook had a bad game. Everybody was willing to poo-poo that. And then they lose to Arizona, but last week recovered against the Chargers. But like I said, Anthony Lynn made a couple of key mistakes in that game. Wasn't really doing a good job defending the game for them. But the 49ers are so shorthanded. It's going to be hard to trust Nick Mullins to, pass to Deebo Samuel 15 times a game. So I will take the Buffalo Bills in this one, both on the points and the pick'em.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. I'm going to take the Bills. I was kind of on the fence. I was like, maybe I should take the Niners. But, dude, the Niners are 1-4 at home.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge red flag. And now you're asking them to play in a stadium that doesn't even belong to them. So I like Buffalo in this one.
All right. Baltimore may be able to get Lamar Jackson back for Tuesday, but it's not a guarantee as of right now. Chase McSorley, former Penn State quarterback, will be the only other option for them at this point. So it's a little bit crazy to think about it, but Baltimore is 6-5. I mean, that is not what you were expected before the season. Especially when they started the season, they were struggling, but they were still winning games. But a really tough stretch as of late for them. They've lost 4 out of the last 5, including a couple of really tough division losses to Pittsburgh, who is going to run away with the East, and then or the North rather. I keep calling the East. And then you're going to have Cleveland, who's going to be right there as well. So Baltimore fighting for their life against the Cowboys at Baltimore. Cowboys fighting still for the division. They will be 7.5-point dogs going into Baltimore. I like Baltimore in this one. I just, defensively they're struggling, but I still like them. And even if it was like Chase McSorley, which I think Lamar will play this game. It's been about a week and a half since the diagnosis happened with Lamar, and I think they said it's been about 3 or 4 days since he's had any symptoms. So I think all it takes is just a couple of string of negative tests, and you'll get Lamar for Tuesday Night Football. So again, it's 7:00 on Tuesday. Baltimore a 7.5-point favorite against the Cowboys. I like Baltimore.
Yeah, I like Baltimore too. I just can't trust Dallas defensively.
No way.
You pretty much let Washington have their way against them on Thanksgiving last week, and they're not getting any better defensively whatsoever. So hopefully Lamar will come back. I mentioned earlier, no RG3. He's out with the hammy. Sucks that his career has gone the way that it has. Yeah. And it was just so promising when it started. So piss off to Mike Shanahan because he has a huge hand in that because he's a piece of absolute shit. And I would, if I saw Mike, dude, if I went out, I'm gonna go dashing as soon as I'm done with the show. Yeah. If I went to Mike Shanahan's house, like let's say if he lived in Texas, and I did a dash at his house, I would literally almost punch him in the face, and it would be worth me going to jail for it because he single-handedly has ruined RG3's career. But with that being said, though, yeah, dude, it is kind of crazy. A lot of people are thinking, oh, Baltimore's like this team that's unbeatable. Like I can only see 1 or 2 games where they won't win, lose games and this and that. But like I said last week, dude, it's an identity thing, man. Like if you're Lamar Jackson, if you know that you're better at running the football than you are at throwing the football, then just flash your legs, dude. Like you don't have to go out there and throw 30 passes for 350 yards with a perfect passer rating to prove anybody wrong. Yeah. Do what has made you successful. Don't do what the media wants you to do that makes you successful. Yeah. Don't do what Donovan McNabb. And that's going to be my favorite quote, especially not so much when it comes to quarterbacks, when it really just comes to black quarterbacks because they seem to be under more scrutiny than anybody else in the league. So to just do what makes you good. Like, no offense to anybody, Michael Vick never really changed who he was. He knew he could run. I mean, he knew he had an arm. It wasn't accurate for anything, but he knew he could run. And my thing is if you know you can run, and then if it sets up for the pass, try to make as much as an accurate pass as you can, but stop trying to be Randall Cunningham or what's another Warren Moon or any other black or Doug Williams, the pocket passer like quarterbacks, who had success when you're not that guy. So I mean, the Ravens I think are going to beat Dallas, but somewhere someone's going to have to be in the offense of the Ravens' heads. Like, hey, we're a run team. We'll set up the pass, but Lamar, I can't have you trying to hawk the ball 30 times.
Yeah, and Greg Roman's got to get fired for Baltimore. What he's done as an offensive coordinator has been absolutely atrocious. I mean, there's no reason why Lamar should be taking this many steps back, especially the way that he looked passing the ball last year. He looked very good passing the ball last year. You put him in those positions, he makes those throws. And it's funny how nobody mentions that with Josh Allen. I wonder what that is, Nick. Nobody, it's funny. It's funny how that works. All right, let's not get too crazy here. All right, I'll jump off for this. That UFC card that I was telling you tonight is not, it's not that impressive. I mean, it was supposed to be. Was this supposed to be
Edwards versus whoever?
No. So Edwards versus Chimaev. Edwards versus Chimaev was supposed to be for that ginormous card that I told you about. That's happening end of December. That got canceled. Now they're going to try and fill that in. Possibly even move the McGregor-Poirier fight up, but that's not going to be able to happen, especially with this short notice. But no, tonight was supposed to be Jack Hermansson versus Darren Till. Darren Till had to pull out, so now it's Jack Hermansson versus Marvin Vettori. So not really a lot of difference makers on this card. I think Ovis St. Preux will have a shot at this one.
Hey, can I, as much as I want to make, okay, I'm going to wait to make John Elway dumbass of the week. Dude, we should start doing that. We should start
dumbass of the week,
segment of the dumbass of the week sports-wise.
Okay.
Dude, look no further than Jake Paul.
Oh, my God.
Here's a jackass who knocked Nate Robinson out. Oh, yeah, by the way, Nate Robinson is every bit of 5'6".
Yeah.
So Jake Paul knocks out Nate Robinson and then has the audacity to sit there and say he wants to go against Conor McGregor in a boxing match. Now, I'm no fan of Conor McGregor whatsoever, but Conor McGregor does have hands. And for what it's worth, he was hanging in that Mayweather fight before Mayweather finally became Floyd and beat his ass. Do not bite off more than you can chew. Okay? That's like if I went out and played one-on-one against a 12-year-old in basketball. Who's like maybe like 5'3".
Yeah.
And then I'm going around saying, hey, yo, man, I'm trying to challenge all the NBA players. So LeBron,
bring on LeBron,
KD, Giannis, I want y'all one-on-one, and I'm going to beat your ass. And sit your stupid ass down. Jake Paul, do not write checks your ass can't cash. Because all I'm going to say is if that fight does happen, I will watch it. And for the first time in my life, I will root for Conor McGregor. Dude, you are not just going to go become a YouTube star and then knock out an aging NBA player that has no boxing background and think you're the shit. Piss off. Dude.
I think Freddie.
So Jake Paul, you get
dumbass of the week. I think Freddie Roach said that he probably thinks there's 100,000 amateur boxers that could knock out Jake Paul easily. You know, if he faced a 17-year-old from Gold's Gym down the street from Chicago or something, that kid would absolutely murder Jake Paul. So one thing I will say about Jake Paul is he's a businessman. He understands how much money he makes from that fight with Conor. But again, you're asking to get knocked out for money. Be careful with that. And by the way, I don't know if you saw. Did you watch the Tyson Jones fight?
I saw some of it. I didn't get chance.
I didn't want. I
Chance to
didn't.
catch up.
Honestly, my streams were being janky at the time, so I had to rewatch it. But I talked about it with my barber yesterday. I was impressed with the overall event. I thought it was a cool idea. I thought it's something that they're going to be able to do more of. I'd never heard of Triller before. Have you heard of Triller before? That was the company that put it on. Apparently, it's so similar to like a meld between YouTube and World Star Hip Hop, and it's got lots of hip hop acts. That I'm sure you saw Snoop Dogg and all these YG and all these other performers were there. Wiz Khalifa. That is an avenue that I think Dana White and other boxing promoters are probably a little bit scared about right now. They're Dana White tried not to acknowledge it too much because it's taking some food off of his plate as a UFC guy. Because I'm telling you, there's going to be more of those. Connor's going to want to fight the Jake Pauls. There's going to be more of these, and you're going to see like the Oscar De La Hoyas. You're going to see more 50-year-old boxers come out of the woodwork. So I thought it was interesting, and to me, I thought the Nate Robinson knockout overshadowed the fight because it was so brutal. And by the way, that ref was terrible. He should have stopped it after the second one. He got knocked down 3 times. That second time should have been done. It should have been, okay, this fight is over, but you let him take that brain damage, unfortunately. And next thing you know, Mike Tyson, I thought he won the fight. I know it was a draw, but I thought he won the fight. He was more powerful with his punches, more body. I get the sense from Mike, he's smoking weed a lot now lately. He's a lot more like of a nice guy lately. I got the sense from him that he wasn't trying to hurt Roy, to be quite honest. I could sense that he was going for body shots, wasn't trying to go and knock the guy out, wasn't trying to hit him in the temples or anything like that. If he would have tried, I think Roy would have been in big trouble.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And as a matter of fact, I heard a story where I guess Mike Tyson was high.
He was. He probably was. Yeah. No, I'm just saying, like, in general, I think he's
dangerous, bro. Think about it. That's dangerous.
It is, yeah.
If he was clear-headed, he probably could have caved Roy Jones
to face it. Yeah.
Dead through his body.
Yeah. I just think also, if you've watched his podcast recently, Mike is a changed guy, dude. Like, Mike is like all about like peace, longevity, love, forgiveness, making up for your mistakes. He's a great example of somebody, we in this country like to throw away people after they've done bad. This person did something bad, we're done with this person. This person did something bad, cancel them. And Mike Tyson is a perfect example of what happens when you give a guy enough chances. He comes around and he finds himself and finds out all the things I don't know if you're familiar with Lil Boosie, obviously, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you, I'm going to request you, I'm going to implore you to watch his interview with Mike Tyson. It was.
Is that the one where he was talking about Dwayne Wade's son?
He was. Yep.
I want to say.
Please watch it because there was a couple times, and one of those examples was, Boosie kept bigging himself up, and I'm a promoter, I'm a marketer, and Mike was like, what's even better for marketing? If you're nice to people. And it's like, be nice to people, and that's good for marketing. And like you could see it in his face that like this guy is really about this life now. He does not want to hurt people. He does not want to do things that are bad for his community, that are bad for people out there in the world. Doesn't want to set a bad example anymore. He has done a tremendous job of rehabilitating himself. And again, a great example of what happens when you stop throwing people out in the trash and throwing the baby away with the bathwater. You tend to have guys who make turns like that.
Exactly. And excuse me, I actually want to correct myself, and I feel bad that I just did this. It's not his son, it's his daughter.
His daughter, sure.
And I guess she's named Zaire, is it now?
Yeah, Zaire is his other son. I believe it's not Zendaya. Zaire is his basketball playing son, but he has another son who recently transitioned to a daughter. Yep. Right.
And I remember I saw like a little clip of it because Boosie was very vocal about
saying
about
some wild shit. He was saying some wild shit.
Yeah. Mike Tyson made him explain himself.
Yeah.
And when he did, Mike Tyson put him in his place.
Yep.
Like even Boosie was kind of like, yeah, he kind of humbled me and saying like, because he was saying, look, it's not your kid, so what is it really to you?
Right, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think the main point Mike was making
like,
is you're making this person and this kid feel bad just by your stupid opinion. You're allowed to have your stupid opinion. Keep it to yourself, though, you know?
Right.
And that's my thought on it too. Like, listen, dude, you're allowed to have any opinion you want. We understand that in this country more than any other country in the world that people are allowed to have stupid opinions. Trust me, I work with a lot of them. I had to go to, you know what I'm saying? So we are in this country are forgiving of shitty, dumb opinions. I think the one thing that Mike set him straight on was that, like, you really think that you're the end all be all, and you're not. And Mike sort of humbled him in the way that, like, you're not the only person in the world. Dwayne Wade is a father. That is his child, and you know, that's somebody that he is committed to loving and nurturing throughout their life. And Boosie actually was sort of taken aback by it, and I thought Mike did a tremendous job.
I think so too. But hey, man, look, my thing is, dude, live the way you want to live life is in your own.
Sure.
But bro, people need to be careful because, correct me if I'm wrong, Magic Johnson's son is gay as hell too.
Mm-hmm.
But this man's worth millions of dollars, dude. Like, I didn't know that Magic Johnson's son was into.
He's a business.
Fashion.
He's a businessman. Yeah, he's a businessman. He's in fashion and makeup and yeah.
Magic Johnson's son is almost worth as much, if not a little bit more, than Magic Johnson himself.
Yeah, and honestly, Nick, and you can talk about this, but you know, from an outsider's perspective, it seems like the black community is really tough on black fathers in those situations, and you know, something that, you know, I think immigrants and black people sort of have in common, which is like this sort of macho bravado. Your father's supposed to come in and, you know, set you straight. Oh, I saw him. You know, it's almost as if like people think that like if you would have given him trucks when he was 2, he wouldn't have come out like that. It's like, that's not how this works, bro. Like, this person is a person who has feelings and has thoughts, and you know, one thing that I will respect Magic Johnson on is he came out in support of his son right away, and his son was really young. I mean, similarly young, and was like, listen, this kid is passionate about what he does. He knows what he wants, and I'm going to support him. And that's what a father should be. The fatherhood has nothing to do with how you do it. It's about your support of your child. And at the end of the day, Magic, you know, all he had to do was just show support to this kid. And this kid's, like I said, like you said, is one of the biggest names in fashion.
Man. I'm pretty sure Dwayne Wade's daughter is going to be in the same boat.
Yeah. And Gabrielle Union is tremendous in that right as well, because, you know, when Dwayne was coming out and trying to defend himself to some of these bigots and some of these, you know, hateful people who were coming after him and saying, why did you allow your son to do this, or why would you allow your child to do this, you know, Gabrielle Union came out and basically said, like, that's not your fight to fight, you know, like you know, you're out there trying to, you know, I know in specific, like Steven Jackson said some, you know, ignorant shit about it and said, if I was my son, I would have da-da-da-da. And Dwayne Wade went on his show and basically said, like, bro, shut the fuck up. You don't know what it's like, and da-da-da-da. And Matt Barnes, I think, did a good job of it, of saying, like, listen, you're supporting your child in whatever way that they want you to, and no matter what, that's always your child. And it really hit home, and I think Dwayne Wade, he has a good support system in Gabrielle Union.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I mean, but to go back to, you know, where this conversation started, I'm gonna start watching a lot of those Mike Tyson podcasts, because he does seem like a changed man, and I'm with you, dude. Maybe, and I always feel like sometimes, especially when I was back in Illinois, a lot of the circles that I hung out with was just a lot of people where as soon as you mess up once, you're a POS, you're this, you're that.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, like, it's like, dude, we live in America that's home of the second chances.
And the third chances.
Or third chances.
Yeah.
Nobody here is perfect.
Yeah.
I've made mistakes. You've made mistakes. Yeah. Steve's made mistakes. Everyone's made mistakes. You know, we're allowed to learn from those, and either you jag and you do the same thing over again, or you learn from it and you change yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. I hate this whole notion like Antonio Brown is a perfect example. Here's a guy who, for a better stretch of 1.5 to 2 years, has gone through like this whirlwind where he's acting like the biggest POS on earth. But here's a Tom Brady who sees something in Antonio Brown that a lot of people don't see, because you know how the media loves to twist and turn things to make you look like the biggest POS ever. And everyone's like, how can someone let this Antonio Brown, after what he did, into the NFL? In the Bible, it says, ye who have not sinned, cast the first stone. So let somebody who keeps with these stupid monkey-ass opinions that people can't get second chances in life, especially when you jag, tell me that throw the first stone if you never messed up to where Antonio Brown can't get a second chance to
silly.
rebrand himself.
It's silly.
And not make himself look like a POS.
Yeah.
Like, come on, dude.
That's silly. And I think
I don't understand, and I never understood where all of a sudden we all have to be like this picture perfect, no mistakes, type of people in this world. That's not how this life works.
No, yeah, and I think one of the most adult, mature things you can do is change your opinion. I think that's, I can't tell you how many things 10 years ago that I was dead wrong on, and that I was hateful and nasty and mean about for no reasons. And because I'm not in the spotlight, I'm never going to have anybody scrutinize me for that. But I think being able to look at your opinions, being able to look at your thoughts and say, that's not right, or hey, that's coming from a different point of view, or hey, I learned more since then and now I understand more. I think that's one of the most mature things you can do. And unfortunately, it's seeming more and more like especially people in the spotlight are not going to have the opportunity to do that. I don't know about you, but I genuinely feel bad for some people who do racist things. You're caught on camera and you do something racist, you say something racist, and next thing you know, your life is ruined. And I'm not a huge fan of that. I'll be honest with you. I really do think that no person is too far gone. I really do think that if KKK members and Nazi members can renounce themselves and go back to being a part of society, I think we can give people enough chances to let them understand where their wrongs are and hopefully improve from them.
Exactly, dude. And I know we're kind of getting deep and we're at the end of the show, but when I was a kitchen manager over at Adobe, I'm not going to mention his name on air, but I hired a guy who I guess apparently had been in jail before. I never would have known that.
Sure.
The only reason why it even came across was because we were having a conversation and he had mentioned that he had been in jail before. And I never followed up on it. I was never like, well, what for? How long? This and that. Where at? Because if that's not a part of your life anymore, I frankly don't care. Yeah. If you come to work and you're on time and you do your job and you collect a check and you don't cause drama, why do I give a rat's ass about what you did 5, 6, 7 years ago? I thought Dave Chappelle did a best thing about that in his most recent stand-up when he was like, and he was like, so let's play Who Am I? And he was like, I'm going to go and dig up and find something old about you, then I'm going to blast the rest of your life about it.
Ruin your rest of your life.
And everyone was like Trump and this and that. And he was like, no, I'm you guys. And he's 100% correct. Because I don't know if you heard, they're trying to find a replacement host for Alex Trebek, who died a couple weeks ago from pancreatic cancer. Yeah. And they said that I guess the guy was supposed to be Ken Jennings.
Ken Jennings, right?
The greatest
guy,
Jeopardy player of all time. Supposedly, he put out a tweet in 2014, something that said, "Man, this girl would really be hot if she wasn't in a wheelchair." And then I guess 4 years later, when he got blasted for it, he apologized and said, "Look, that was a different guy. I didn't mean to say that. I've apologized. I'm sorry if I offended anybody." Boom! Apology accepted, move on. Now you're trying to hold that against this man to become the next Jeopardy host of something that he said almost 6 years ago? Like, come on, dude. When do we start When do we learn when it's okay to move on when a guy apologizes, and how long we're going to just keep beating a dead horse
Yeah.
as if like nobody in this world has ever done wrong? I think that's one of the things that drives me nuts about this country is the hypocrisy of when we gonna practice what we preach. You know what I'm saying? Like basically, when we gonna practice what we preach?
Yeah.
Because if that's the case, we all might as well just die now. Because there's not a perfect person that walks this earth.
And I better start canceling, or I better start deleting my social media right now because I'm not known for the most.
Because every time I look at my Facebook memories and I go back about those 8, 9, 10 years ago, I'd be like, damn, did I really say that?
Cringe. Oh my God. Yeah, no. And, you know, before we wrap up, it just, you know, what really bothers me is that, like, and you mentioned Dave Chappelle, and I think Dave Chappelle is a great example of this, of like, it used to be that liberals were sort of the bastion of free speech and that you could say whatever you want with liberals and, you know, this is what art is and da-da-da. And that's completely taken a left turn. And it seems like it's the complete opposite now. It's like the liberals are the ones who want to ruin your life because you didn't say something the way that they wanted to, and that's just not right. We can't have that in this world if we want to have this be the country of second and third chances. That just can't happen. So we got to get better. But anyways, don't take our word for it. You know, go out and practice. We're just two dudes with a passion for sports and two microphones.
Exactly.
All right, everyone, go be nice to people. Yeah, go be nice to people. That's all I'm going to say. If you're going to take one thing that I said on this podcast, just take this. Go be nice to people. Hug your family. Mind your fucking business and go do your thing. All right? And another one in the books for us.
Exactly.
All right, brother.
Guys. Well, remember, what is it? rmtalk, rmtalk.com.
rmtalk.com, guys. Rolling Meadows Talk. We talked about it earlier. Local deals, events, business directory. Check it out. RM as in rollingmeadowstalk.com. They still have that special for Reps Sports Bar. So go ahead and check that out online and support your local small businesses.
Hell flipping right. There we go. All right, guys. Well, we'll see you next week. Hopefully these picks will be a lot better, and my blood pressure won't be so high because Tampa Bay's not playing, thank Christ. And I don't have to hear any more Brady versus Jameis comparisons.
Oh, God.
As if anyone's really supposed to care.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Exactly. All right, guys. Well, thanks to Steve, as always. For Mack, I'm Black. We'll see you guys next week, same time.
Peace.
Peace.